Welcome back to the Why So Series podcast. I'm your host, Brandon, and we are back for another movie review. And this time we have a whole squad with us. And it's probably one of two reviews we're going to do for this film because it was such a big deal. But of course, we're here to review Avengers Endgame. And yes, it's going to be full of spoilers because we don't do non-spoiler reviews here on the Why So Series podcast. But I guess I'll read the stupid synopsis. After the devastating events of Avengers Infinity War, the universe is in ruins. With the help of remaining allies, the Avengers assemble once more in order to undo Thanos' actions and restore order to the universe. This is directed by the Russo brothers, starring everybody you know. So we have Sharmane from the Militantly Mixed podcast and the Blerd Comixed podcast. And we have Rich Fann from the PwTorch Deep Dive. What's up, Rich? Rich is on mute. Oh, no, he is.
What's up with y'all?
What's going on?
I'm unmuted now.
And then we have the regular
Not
people.
much. Happy to be here.
We have Devin and Mike. What's going on, guys?
You always forget Big Mike.
I was going to give Big Mike a special interest, Mike.
Yeah, special.
This is why you aren't the host. And we have, he comes back for all of our MCU reviews. We have Big Mike in the house. What's up, Big Mike?
What's up, Brandon? How you doing?
So I'm going to start with the lady on the panel because we usually have at least two women on the panel because I don't like a whole bunch of dudes on my show all the time or our show all the time. But we just have Sharmane alone. So Sharmane, what were your overall thoughts of this film?
I was really happy with it. I got a couple nitpicky things about it, but for the most part, I think it was a pretty good ending to the saga.
So you're not like Hugh?
No, and like seriously, I was so shocked by his reaction to it. Like it makes me feel like I don't know the dude.
So one of Charmaine's friends is in the group chat with us, and Rich is gonna die laughing at this. But he said that he thought that Iron Man 3 was better than Endgame.
Oh wow!
Oh my God.
He did, and
if I wasn't sitting down, I would already need to sit down.
I straight up had to say, I invited you to this group chat with my fellow Blerds, and you are embarrassing me in front of all my friends.
He said Iron Man 3 is better than Captain Marvel. He said it was better than something else that was really good too.
He said Iron Man 2 also.
Oh yeah, Iron Man 2 also.
For sure. I think he said Thor 2. I know he had a list. And I couldn't get down with most of the list. I was shocked, but you know.
Not to disparage his good name, but I just thought that was hilarious.
I'll talk to him about it on my show next week. So
I feel like people want to be contrarian sometimes when it comes to stuff like this, like because like even though Game of Thrones was great yesterday, people were saying it wasn't good.
I haven't heard anybody say that.
Yeah, exactly. But no, people were like, well. It was too dark.
Yeah, I heard people say that.
I have more complaints about yesterday's episode of Game of Thrones than I do of Endgame. I'll say that.
Yeah.
I thought both.
The one thing I would say about yesterday's episode, which my girl Lexi Alexander mentioned on Twitter, was a lot of it's because people don't know how to set their settings on their television.
Yes,
like
that's actually probably true too.
It's like she's like, because I sure enough watched a friend of mine watched it in a bar in New York. And I was like, I can see everyone like perfectly compared to these screenshots I'm seeing on Twitter. And it was basically because the bar had really nice TVs and they were set at like Vivid instead of like video game or like home movie or whatever they had it set at home. Like,
movie makes everything darker. In fact, I'm a whole nerd about it. When I bought my new TV and I was like, okay, I'm going to buy a 4K TV. I wanted to have all this shit. And then I went on this website to like how it rates like the brightness of when it's in HDR, like all this shit, right? And then it tells you like, oh, these are the settings these are like the custom settings you can go in to get all the colors perfectly. So I went and did all that, and let me tell you something. It makes a huge difference in how good your TV looks. So like if you can look up your TV and go to this, I forget what the website is. I'll probably find it at some point, but it'll tell you like the settings to change all the colors and shit. It'll make your TV really pop and look really cool. Rich, what was your overall thoughts of this film?
I love this movie. I have some little things that are just selfish things, but nothing like Iron Man 3 level.
Yeah.
But yeah,
blasphemy.
I thought this was great.
Yeah.
I cried more than I was watching The Color Purple the first time.
So many tears. So many tears.
Just so much. And so many times where it caught me And I was like, why am I? Oh, yeah, you got me. Fine.
See, I got emotional at some of the emotional parts, but like I actually had a tear at a part that I don't think was supposed to make me cry. But like,
what was that?
When Cap said "Avengers Assemble"?
Yes.
Nigga, please,
I
you don't
lost
even
it.
understand.
And I was
When
like,
he starts to say it, I've seen it 3 times, but the first time I saw it, when he says Avengers, I'm like, say it. To the point that my hub had to like look at me like, are you okay? Like, and I'm just like, say it.
I was getting emotional just out here talking about it. Like,
Listen,
that's real.
the composer for this film, which I should probably look up, who did the score, is incredible. Like, there was an incredible score, and like when he stands up there by himself and Thanos' whole army's there, and then they basically cut all the music, and they just hear the sound effects of the people coming through. That's what got me. That part was just like everybody coming through the portals, and I'm like, oh my god.
Like, you hear me talk about how much I don't like to admit to being emotional. You know, my Japanese samurai ancestors, I will disappoint them. You know how crazy I am about this. I was choked up. I was crying, heaving sobs in places where I was just happy that I was seeing what I was seeing. It had nothing to do with when I was sad. But mind you, I was obviously crying when I was sad too. But like, there were just times when I was so happy with the image itself, I was fucking bawling. I could not get myself together.
Oh wow, that's something.
It's a big deal for me to admit. I'll say
that is a big deal, actually. Big Mike, what were your overall thoughts?
I liked it a lot. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. When I left the theater, I don't know if it was all the hype and the build up, but I left the theater immediately feeling a little underwhelmed. But I've only seen it once. I definitely got to see it a couple more times. But as I've thought about it, I've listened to a couple more podcasts about it and reviewing it and stuff. The more I think about it, the more I love this film. Like I was really, really happy with it. Overall, I mean, I guess my biggest problem was it seemed like a little too much fan service for me.
Okay.
I was kind of expecting more of like an Infinity War epic kind of conclusion, more of a film than kind of like a victory lap of their movies. But the more I think about it, I mean, the more I love this movie. It was fantastic.
Yeah, one of my friends texted me and he was like, I like Infinity War better. And I knew immediately why he said that. And it's because it had more action. And this film had more plot development, more character wrap-ups, more paying homage to people who follow these films and love these characters. Whereas Infinity War, like, you had fight scenes all throughout. Like, you had it on Earth, then you had it on Titan, you had on the ship. Like, you had these fight scenes, you had in Wakanda, in New York. So you had these fight scenes sprinkled throughout, where in this film, you really have one fight scene, really? Like, I mean, it's the biggest fight scene we've ever seen, but...
And I feel like, well, yeah, I guess the fan service probably is there for this one, but I feel like I'm okay with that because we don't often get enough. To me, we don't.
Nobody
often
does
get
a movie like this, right?
Right, and I feel like there were so many moments when I was like, "That's a panel. That's a pan." You know, there were things like that I feel like that was given. Being a comic book fan who has sat through 22 movies, they finally gave me some panels that I've been wanting to see. A version of it.
Yeah, this film was straight out of a comic book, especially that last scene. If matter of fact, you need to go see this film in Dolby Digital, Dolby Cinema or IMAX.
It is worth
it. One, the sound, but because the sound is very important. Because the first time I saw it was in a regular theater, and I was like, it did not feel anywhere near the same as seeing it in the Dolby Cinema. Dolby Cinema sound, by the way, is like the best thing ever, even better than IMAX.
The best.
But also on that last act, you need the screen size to see everything that's going on because there's so much going on in that scene. Mike, what about you?
Of course, I love this film. I think it was probably the greatest superhero film of all time.
That's not.
Do you have any like?
That's a DC dude.
Do you have anything that's like not a platitude to say about the film?
I don't have any like problems with the movie. Per se, I have a few questions that I have about some minor things that I'm pretty sure can be explained.
Good, we'll get to that.
I saw the one thing that I saw was someone was like, the worst thing about Infinity War is that it's not inclusive to non-fans or to newcomers, and I'm like, well, it's not supposed to.
Yeah. What?
You don't. This is not for you. This is not for new people.
Okay.
I mean,
yeah,
not this one.
If you didn't at least,
you know what I figured out with this
Infinity
movie?
War.
Yeah, go ahead, Rich.
I figured out with this movie, especially it being on the weekend of Game of Thrones, a lot of people aren't okay with FOMO. Like for me, if there's a thing I'm not into that everybody else
Yes.
is into,
Yes.
I've learned to be okay with like, hey, enjoy your thing. I don't need to either say, hey, I'm not in this thing and loudly talk about how I'm not in the thing. I don't need to talk about I don't understand people being in it. So with this one, it became a deal where it's like, okay, we see the projections. It's pretty popular. It's 3 hours, whatever. Okay, I guess I have to go. And then they go and it's like they're asking people and bumping them on the set. Who's that dude? Who's that dude? It's like it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
This is not the film to take that person to see.
Yeah, they have. Well, like I have a friend, a fellow podcaster who hadn't seen many of the movies, and so her partner would basically gave her the boot camp and ran her through all 22 over the last 3 weeks. So you're talking about a non-comic book fan being overwhelmed by this stuff, but then by the time she watched it, it helped her enjoy what happened and understand what happened. But it also is super rushed for her, whereas we've been sitting in this for 11 years. And if you're gonna come in right now and be like, well, I don't really like it and I don't know who the characters are, it's like, yeah, this is not, don't come then. It's not for you. It's not for you.
No, it is not for you. Devin, what about you?
I felt like somebody told me Santa Claus wasn't real, and then on Christmas Day, I get to peek downstairs and I actually see Santa Claus planning my gifts downstairs. It was the perfect movie to me. Like it had everything that I wanted from a movie, everything I waited for those 11 years for all this storytelling to come together. I had a whole bunch of dad moments in here. You know, I get choked up on dad moments, and I had a lot of those in this film, and it just came to completion at such a perfect end. And then, Brandon, how do you feel about your Captain America being black now?
Listen, I have a T-shirt that I used to sell called "My Captain America is Black" after when Sam Wilson took over the Shield in the comic books. And all I'm going to say about that is this film really said a fuck you to all the Comic Gate people. And I can imagine, I hadn't really paid attention to them because they kind of been drowned out by all the praise, thankfully. But I can imagine them being really heated after this film. Like Captain Marvel being the most powerful person on the screen, like fucking people up, like Sam getting the shield.
My one issue about that is, in these movies, when these heroes have masks, I don't like that they reveal their faces so much, or like Captain Marvel didn't wear the mohawk in the mask.
Oh, yeah, that would have been cool.
That's the only thing that really got under my skin more than anything about.
That's just a film thing.
A movie thing. Yeah, it's a film
thing.
Basically, they're like, if we're gonna put this person in the mask the whole time, then we don't need to pay money for stars. We could just have anybody under a mask the entire time, and so if we're gonna pay however it costs to get Robert Downey Jr. to be Iron Man, he's gonna have that fucking mask off most of the time, so we can know that it's Robert Downey Jr. All right, so I'll give my thoughts throughout, but I wanted to make sure everybody got that. So I'm not going to go through this chronologically, but I'm going to kind of start towards the beginning. So Rich, so one of the things that I kind of got right on my prediction is that I thought that they would handle a portion of the Thanos thing early in the film and spend the rest of the film fixing the world. Rich, were you surprised with how they kicked this thing off and then with the time jump?
I was surprised with it, but then the more I thought about it, and I wanted to get y'all, because I figured if this is going to be a panel, someone else is going to have the same thought. The second that happened, I saw it by myself because my son's not ready he's 7. He's
not ready for a head to be on the ground. No. Yeah.
And my wife would be that person, be like, who, what? And I'd kick myself out of the theater. But when Thanos caught like the SEAL Team 6 arm rip decapitation, I was like, this is like Chrono Trigger. Like they just jumped right, and then the whole movie was to me like playing Chrono Trigger, because when Homeboy jumped from 2014 to like 2023 to talk smack, like I heard y'all tried to smoke me. I was like, oh, I never thought that the Endgame boss could show up after you. Oh, okay. So yeah, I didn't mind it, the surprise, but I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And then the second part, as far as the time jump, that made it even more real because the first thing I noticed, because I got 3 pages of notes here, is over the 5 years, I appreciated, and this isn't necessarily fan service, it's more like quote unquote reality. Everyone got smaller. Like Captain America was physically smaller. Mm-hmm. Iron Man already came back from space after 3 weeks, emaciated, looking like he was a cancer patient. Mm-hmm. No one looked like the buff people they were when they lost the first time to Thanos. They were just humans surviving.
Yeah,
that's an excellent,
really good point. Yeah, in detail.
So when you were watching, when that happened, Mike, I'm gonna go to you. So you were somebody who pretty much got all your predictions wrong.
No, poor thing, you sure did.
I called most of what happened in the end fight, like word for word.
Okay, Mike. I'm just messing with you. It's okay. I just like teasing you sometimes, Mike. That's all.
Oh, I did get the beginning part wrong.
Were you? So one of my biggest things that I took away from this film was after they come back from the 5 years thing. It seems like, do you think it was like some superhero shit going on in between that 5 years and Black Widow was just heading that? What do you think?
Still talking to me?
Yeah, what do you think happened in that 5 years? And a second part, and this opens up to everybody, do you think we're going to see films in the MCU that take place during those 5 years?
Got to.
I think yes, because what it looked like to me was when she was talking to Rocket, Captain Marvel, and War Machine, I'm pretty sure that was supposed to be a nod to. It looked like the same way that Fury would talk to the World Security Council, but I think now it's like a Universal Security Council, and she has like Avengers and Guardians scattered throughout taking care, responding to turmoil that has erupted from the decimation, as they call it. So. I don't think all of them
I need people to understand the word decimation means destroyed by 10%. So we need to stop using that word incorrectly because it drives me nuts.
I mean, that's what they call it.
I know, but it drives me nuts.
I'm sorry. But I think that they did. I don't think so in the 5 years, when Cap went to space, he had his outfit from the Winter Soldier. And then when he was in the war, he had that new suit. So I don't know if Cap had to have been doing some superhero work because at some point in 5 years, he was like, I need a new suit, and I'm sure Widow did. Obviously, Hawkeye was doing stuff.
I wouldn't call that superhero work.
I mean, but I think Widow and Captain America were, and then I feel like Hulk probably didn't.
And Carol was clearly going throughout space doing shit.
Carol and Rocket and War Machine was, maybe not War Machine.
No, War Machine was in Mexico. Well, he was in Mexico during that thing.
He was looking for a Hawkeye at the time, but I'm fairly certain that
he was not looking for him. They were just tracking him. Every incident he did, they were like, that was Clint. Yeah,
I have no doubt that I think maybe Cap probably would have tried to do more superheroing and then took a step back and then started doing his those therapy sessions, but there had to have been. I mean, I have no doubt there was probably superhero work going on.
Now I know my man Rich peeped this part out, but did y'all hear the little Easter egg for Namor with Okoye?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So Black Widow goes to Okoye and she goes like, "What the hell is going on with this rift in the ocean?" And she's like, "Yeah, these rifts keep coming around, and blah blah blah." And she's like, "How do we stop it?" She
only says the African continent though. She doesn't tease anywhere else but the African continent.
Well, that's all she would know.
Yeah.
But listen, there's a big, maybe this is me being a comic book nerd, but there's a big part of there's a big event in comic books where Namor basically invades Wakanda.
Hilarious. It's great.
And so I'm like, I don't even know the rules to the Namor. I think that's one of the most confusing ones, who has the rights to Namor, but I think they can use Namor. I think.
Yeah, they got him back. They did when they slowly before they picked up Fox, they worked out the rights, Namor, Ghost Rider, and that's why they used Ghost Rider again with what was it, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Oh yeah.
They were pretty slick with that. But the only thing they couldn't get was Hulk, which is why Homeboy is gonna I have a theory about that, but we can get to that later.
Okay. So
I think they have a nice little legal go around.
Oh, to do a Hulk movie?
Yeah, go
Like a
with
solo
his
film?
cousin. Go with his
Oh,
cousin,
She-Hulk.
She-Hulk.
Yeah. Old Man Wade's always talking about that, doing She-Hulk, which, I think we'll all like to see Jennifer show up on the screen.
Yeah.
Especially the funny, I don't know how you don't play that for a little comedy, because like the idea of seeing like this big, giant, beautiful green woman like walk into a courtroom and just start defending someone, like I would die laughing seeing that. So I don't know if you can fully play it for comedy, but that scene would just be funny as shit.
Maybe you get Taika Waititi to do that one too. That way it has that comedy punch that we're getting from Ragnarok.
Yeah, like I can see that being really funny. So yeah, we had a little. So they also did a thing of setting up a few films. Like I think that's like in my opinion, I think that might be what they go with for Black Panther 2. Although, did you hear the rumors that initially Ryan Coogler wanted to use Kraven the Hunter as the villain in Black Panther 1?
Yeah.
Mm.
I was like, that's really interesting.
That's super interesting, yeah.
But yeah, I think we might see Namor, and then I think they're setting up like as Guardians of the Galaxy, obviously at the end, and
Obviously,
they're going to be searching for Gamora. Like I think a lot of people were mad they didn't have an end credit scene, but I think throughout the film they set up a lot of stuff going forward. So we come back from the 5-year break. Big Mike, what did you think about Thor being fat and out of shape?
Man, why you gotta ask me that? What the fuck is that about?
Because I haven't asked you anything this whole time. It's not because you're Big Mike.
No, it's all good. I thought it was obviously really funny in the beginning. I think the joke kind of got old pretty quick. I didn't think it was necessary for them to keep it going through the whole movie. It kind of like robbed that like cinema glory for me in that end fight scene when all the Avengers are kicking ass and you got to see Thor's beer gut. Like it just kind of ruined that moment for me a little bit.
So you're fat shaming on the podcast?
You know, if I think I'm allowed to do that, I'm gonna give myself that right. But like I said, I think it was funny at first. It probably could have gone on a little bit more, but towards the end, I didn't think it was super necessary. It was a very nitpicky thing for me. That wasn't a big deal, but
see, I thought it was a big deal for the opposite reason, because so often we see Thor, especially since Ragnarok, Thor's just been this comedic character, but the comedy is all based in like trauma, and so like Thor's been through so much shit like in his life in the MCU, like from his mom dying to like all the shit with Loki, to not being with Jane anymore, to his sister coming and killing everybody, and then him losing Asgard, his best friend dying, like, and then him not killing Thanos. Like, he's been through so much shit. And so they play the comedy, but when you actually listen to the lines, it's like, this dude's been through a lot of shit. And so it makes sense.
I appreciate Thor so much as a person who has depression and anxiety. Like, who has also had a traumatic in my case, childhood, but in his case, like the last 3 weeks of his life, basically. He makes so much sense to me the way he is. Although I do agree, it would have been nice if he could have popped Stormbreaker and gotten to skinny Thor cool for the fight. I love the braid. I love the braided beard, though.
I kind of wanted Doctor Strange to pop out and then look at him and be like, "Oh, absolutely not," and then just kind of do some weird stuff, and then he's normal again. Oh no, we can't have it.
That'd have been great.
Also, I love how Chris Hemsworth is like one of the most handsome people on the planet, and he just plays a slob, which is great.
Oh god, it's so good.
See, my biggest problem though with him is because he's so handsome and buff, and like even through his fat makeup, his fat suit, whatever, I could still kind of see his abs. Like I saw through that makeup, I still saw them.
I saw this movie with my dad, which is the first time I've ever seen a movie with him in theaters like this, and he totally thought that was his real body. He was like, "Why would he do this to himself for this movie? He ruined it." I was like, "Dad, that was not his real body."
Mike did not like Thor in this movie. Quote from his sister Allie. Allie became a Captain America fan after this movie. Those were just some sound bites I got from. Not?
So Devin, so we're speaking about appearances. Devin, what'd you think about Carol's new shortcut?
You know, the 53%er. I was very upset about it. I was like, And I just thought about that girl on the plane coming from fucking Puerto Rico that said, I don't like her. I don't like Brie Larson. As like, she just doesn't do it for me. And I immediately felt like her. And I felt like Captain Marvel was the biggest dick in this movie. Like, just the biggest dick. Like, you could have helped a long time ago. Like,
look, she's out. Listen,
She's covering a lot of
She's doing a lot of shit.
But it's a
Look at
Thanos
you
problem.
putting all the stuff on the woman. I see what's going on here. I see what you're doing.
I just saw it.
When Captain Marvel in the last fight was coming, you could see that like what was the ship? What was it like? She came in as like this burning.
The Hellfire turned their guns onto her.
Yeah, when that happened and like it wasn't revealed who it was yet, but we all knew who it was. My dad with the straightest face, I looked at my sister who was to my left, and I was like, oh, it's coming. Like, it's about to happen. And I looked at my dad and said the same thing. And he goes, what, Aquaman? And I was like,
Yes.
Oh, my God. Your stories about your dad are hilarious.
With the straightest face. Aquaman? No. What? No.
I met Mike's dad over the weekend. He is super cool in person. Like, he's just like the coolest guy. And he listens to our show.
He doesn't know who owns who. So I think, like, having recently saw Aquaman, he must have assumed, like, all right, well, he hasn't come up yet. So he must be coming soon.
And so the last major appearance change is Professor Hulk. So Sharmane, what do you think about Professor Hulk and that whole thing?
I liked like digitally. I thought he looked great. And I thought
Agreed.
they kept even his teeth. He's got that wonky tooth situation. Ruffalo does, and that I think all of that nailed it. I actually was looking forward to see Professor Hulk, and I'm fine with it. But I'm also wondering if he can fuck. Like, who's he fucking?
That is an excellent question. Because do you remember in Incredible
he's going
Hulk?
alone now that Natalie
Nat's gone.
is gone. He's
like,
just
during that 5 years, did they ever fuck? Because she looks like she could take it.
We've all seen the GIF. Let's not kid ourselves.
So here's the thing: if you remember the Incredible Hulk movie when he was with Betty. By the way, they just erased Betty.
Wait, you have seen that GIF, right?
Of
I
what?
have not. I don't
I
think
haven't seen
Mike,
it.
Oh my
send me
gosh.
that GIF right now. I'm gonna send it to all of them, and we can hear their reaction on camera. On the recording. I'm so sorry for what you're about to see.
So
No,
you
no.
probably
See, I'm
shouldn't
not
see
gonna look.
Yeah,
It is
I'm
like
not
a
gonna
bad
look.
book. I'm not gonna join the party.
Yeah, I'm not gonna look. But yeah, if we remember in Incredible Hulk, that one scene when he's with Betty since she's been erased, and they're in bed and they're like kissing and stuff, and he's like, "Don't get me too excited." Because he didn't want, so he's basically saying I guess he can't
He would
do that.
destroy her body.
Destroy her.
So that's interesting. But I really liked Professor Hulk, and I love how they blended the personalities. Because you remember in Ragnarok when he was Hulk for so long, he was just kind of an asshole making jokes and shit. And so and then Ruffalo's kind of like this quiet figure that's like behind the scenes. And so they kind of mix those two together where he's like joking and taking selfies with kids and shit.
Yeah.
So I thought that was really cool.
I love Paul Rudd. I love Ant-Man. God, that was good.
My hub, he did say that he agreed with Valkyrie's statement of I think I preferred you either of the other ways, because he really likes that the Hulk can just go full rage out. And so my whole deal now is I liked the Professor Hulk character. I think I really enjoyed him, but if it really came down to it, could he Hulk out?
Well, he kind of did.
I think he's there. He's always at that level. He doesn't become a bigger Hulk or a when he chucked that bench compared to when they went back to 2012, where he's and he's denting the car and basically turned into the lion from Madagascar.
That shit was funny. So Rich, as the person on the podcast that's the academic of the group, what did you think about their time travel rules? Because I know that'll be a big topic between all of us, so I'll let you kick it off.
Well, first, I love the fact that the writers went to actual physicists and worked it through and eliminated the grandfather theory, which we all know colloquially is the back.
Didn't I tell you guys that?
Yes, you did.
Sorry.
And so when they did that made it great, because that tied into Chrono Trigger. You can't undo the past, but if things happen, it's just going to be in your present/future, which also means some of the things you do in the future going back into the past need to happen to complete the cycle. Like the whole one of my favorite examples of that is when Tony talks to his dad and tells his dad the phrase that his dad uses as a seminal quote for Tony.
Mm-hmm.
That had to happen because it happened.
Oh, I see what you're saying now.
Because
see
what
what
you're
you're saying.
dealing with is not time loops. It's one
Right.
timeline with a bunch of shit that happens that sometimes
Right.
seems like it's past and sometimes seems like it's future.
Right.
But it's actually always it's one solid timeline.
So, Sharmane, your husband teaches time travel. So, do you have any notes for us about time travel in this film?
Well, he read his theory of putting together the whole story so that he can answer some of the questions that we were talking about in our group chat. So I am gonna have that on my show because he kind of read it to me fast before we got online today. But there are a couple things that do cause a little bit of a problem, like Cap's shield being totally destroyed, and at what point in time do you take it without it impacting Capsicle or the without impacting the timeline too much, and basically you have to insert something that allows Cap to go in at a time that the shield is being undisturbed or unused, gives it to Sam, and then at some point Sam has to put it back there to allow that because of the damage. If Cap's shield had never been damaged in the
like the final fight, yeah.
Oh, so you're
in my
saying
mind-
I see. I
in
took
my
that as
mind-
him building a new shield.
That's what I
Because
thought.
that was vibranium. Because remember, even the original one from Civil War was damaged, and when he got it from Tony, it was repaired.
Right, and
I
I
think
what I
when
can't
he
understand
stopped
about
it-
that is they've never answered when they've repaired it. They've never answered is did they have more? They always said the vibranium was limited until we actually got to see Black Panther. So did they have another cache of it? Were they in communication with Wakanda post Wakanda going to opening up to the world and being like, hey, can you give me another shield? Like, at what point does Cap do that? So there is some issues there, which I'm still not 100% clear on, but my husband is. And yeah, he does. He teaches time travel classes. He's a philosopher and a logician with a specification in space time. So like all this shit, he was able to kind of. It took him a couple days, and he's still working through some of it. But the grandfather paradox, like what came up, is definitely something that freaked everybody out when you see Nebula kill past quote unquote Nebula. It ends up being.
So President Nebula just replaced her, or she just doesn't exist anymore?
She was out of time herself because 2014 Nebula never went there, so it became its own history. So
right. So it was just a different time. So 2014 is just a different timeline than the one we're in.
It's not separate timelines.
No, it's not.
You're on the same timeline the whole time.
But you got to think of it like when they were talking about when Doctor Strange was talking about the lines of time. I mean, the bald-headed Strange,
ancient
one.
Bald-headed Strange.
So when she was saying that there's streams in these lines, and if you remove something, it becomes its own line.
Right.
But if you merge them,
so if we were to go back in time to 5 minutes after Nebula and Thanos, all of them jumped to the future, would Nebula be dead?
Well,
she would see herself alive.
No, if it was 5 minutes after they went to the future, like after they went through the portal.
That becomes a question of what happens in terms of the timeline. What happens to the people who get dusted? The Thanos side, when they get dusted, they basically revert to where they left in the time, like where they jumped in from the 2014 to, was it 2023 or something by this point? Mm-hmm. When they basically blip back without any knowledge of having gone forward. So that's where they can continue to go down. Like I say, it's not time loops, and yet I'm about to explain.
Oh, so you think Thanos is still in that old timeline? He's just he's removed from existence.
He has to be.
He has
for the
to be.
Physics. Yeah.
Okay.
The future, it's hard when you talk about like the futures and stuff. It sounds like you're talking about time loops, but you're not talking about time loops. This is something my husband has like drilled into my head. So basically, it's just one time. And when Thanos comes out of time, like if 2014 Thanos pops into 2023, that is his future. but it's also
present.
it's also his past, because he's going to blip back. He's going, and it's like his chronological time. I'm sure I'm fucking this up.
No, you're right.
But his chronological time continues to move forward, and sometimes it is perceived as the past, and sometimes it is perceived as the present. But he's still going through it. He's just sliding across it.
So does that mean his timeline ends in 2023?
His timeline ends in 2018.
Okay, so so
2018
basically
was the
we
time
can't
with
see
his-
Thanos in this timeline ever again.
No, it can't
No.
be.
Okay.
Not unless they do a snap.
Thanos dies in 2018. When his head gets chopped off, that is when he dies. It just so happens that in our experience, it looks
I
like
see.
he died, and
Yeah.
then he goes into the future. But no, his chronological timeline is his whole life to 2018.
Yes. Oh, okay. I got you.
2023.
Yeah, like what they're
did
doing
that-
on the Flash with the Reverse Flash. When he died, he's like, "This is the end of my timeline," but like he's way in the future because he's just running through time and shit.
Mhm.
Right. And then you can even think about going forward in the future. This sets the stage for, and then once, Brandon, I know you saw this on Twitter. This sets the stage for someone like Annihilus,
Yes.
who
Right.
also is another time. Like, you have to deal with him. And then, we saw on Twitter the comment of like the Avengers, the X-Men, and everyone else is like getting their butts handed to them. And then you see a 53-year-old Chris Evans show up looking like a 53-year-old Chris Evans, wondering, is it time I got to crack some skulls? And everybody just starts crying all over again.
Yes.
Because,
Annihilus or Kang the Conqueror, both of them.
Or Kang, or you name it. I mean, I'm happy with any of these time devils coming
Annihilus
through.
would be great though, because he's so strong.
What is Thanos's fucking sword spear thing made out of that it destroyed?
That's an excellent question.
Adamantium.
Adamantium. Yes.
That would be hilarious.
Because, okay, so here, can we talk about the gauntlet?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Or is that, we're not yet? Are we not
No,
ready?
go ahead. We don't have any. I don't have any plans. We're just gonna talk.
Okay. I got to get this off my chest because I have been sitting on it. As excited as an Iron Man fan as I am to see a Stark Gauntlet or a Tony Gauntlet or whatever the fuck you want to call it, I have super duper problems with. I really wanted a vibranium gauntlet. I thought, vibranium does come from space. It would have made sense that it was strong enough or powerful enough to handle the stones or whatever, even if maybe it's slightly weaker than the Neverdealer one. I don't know. Because we're just talking about nanotech with Tony for a Stark gauntlet. But vibranium could be so close to Urdu, and you could just insert a comment from Thor where he's just like checking out the vibranium shield or checking out anything and being like, hey, this reminds me of Urdu. Something like it could tell us that it was some special spacey shit that accounted for it. But I think the reason why I'm kind of going off on this tangent is because I'm really disturbed by not knowing what Thanos's.
Oh, can I go
weapons
full
made
nerd
out
for
of.
you on this? 'Cause
Yes,
I think
please.
I have.
Yes, please.
part
Yes,
of it.
please.
Okay, so we know that Nat and Tony and the rest of the crew have access to all of S.H.I.E.L.D.'s fun technology. We
Mhm.
also know that almost everyone, or half of everyone on Earth is dead, including most of the smugglers, et cetera, et cetera. As soon as I saw, because I had the same question, as soon as I saw him give Steve a fully functioning shield, the first thought I had was one, obviously we know in Wakanda most of the vibranium's gone now, but we don't know where the smugglers had stuff, and we don't know how much S.H.I.E.L.D. had in its stores. Like they had everything else shady because they didn't want to tell everybody, because my boy Mr. Fury always got to keep things close to the chest.
I mean, the lifeboat still had, with the exception of things that happened in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., technically they could have gotten a bunch of that shit just sitting there.
Right.
Yeah.
So they got that there. And then on top of that, when he made the variant of Extremis that he used circa Infinity War and then the advanced version for Endgame, that's the first thing I thought he did as far as putting it, because he's always making a Mark 10, 11, 12. I figured
Right.
the newest version had vibranium because if you all remember,
That's what I
when
want to
Thanos
know.
punched him in the face last time with the nanotech, that stuff broke off.
Mm-hmm.
This
Right.
time the
It
armor
did.
stayed on.
That's
So
right.
that's how, to me, they didn't fill that blank in. To me, that had to be vibranium.
And
That
he
was
also
the
had.
one-
I wouldn't be surprised if in the 5 years Tony made his new suit with the knowing that Thanos was still alive, and just in case he ever comes for him or his family.
No. He
it's
knew
like,
Thanos
I'ma
was
have-
dead. because they killed Thanos.
Oh, that's right. He's okay.
But he had
But
5
he
years to
also
make a new suit.
Yeah, just
But he
waiting
also
for the
made
next
look
big
at War
bad.
Machine. He made
Yeah.
a Iron
War
Patriot
Machine.
Mark II. That Iron Patriot was basically a Thanos buster.
Yeah.
Right.
Because that thing was huge.
And if he wasn't concerned about the next big bad, then he wouldn't have made the suit for Pepper Potts either. So I
Right.
feel like, yeah, all I wanted and all I've been wanting since Infinity War is some sentence that somebody says, oh, yeah, thanks for that. Well, actually, what I wanted, and tell me what you guys feel about this. What I wanted, because now that Tony's gone and we don't have Ironheart, I do not want Baby Morgan to turn into Ironheart, because obviously that would be taken away.
Oh,
Crown
no, I
character
don't
from
think
us.
they're going to do
Oh,
But
that.
what I
No,
want
no.
to happen, what I've always wanted to happen is that Tony and Shuri did have a relationship. He gets a vibranium nanotech fucking suit, and all of the stuff he makes going forward has vibranium in it or whatever. And then now that Tony's gone, Shuri goes to the Oakland tech thingy that they created at the end of Black Panther. She finds a little Riri there.
Oh, I see what
Takes
you're
her
saying.
out of
Oh,
Detroit.
okay.
It's at least a way in the MCU that you can give us Riri as a future Iron Man, or Ironheart, if you use the Oakland Wakanda Outreach Center as your way of getting in there. She could still be a hood girl. She's just an Oakland hood girl.
You just want to
Mr.
clean the
Chicago.
city. You
Actually,
just wanna
that's not a
represent-
bad idea.
That's good. Yeah,
That's
not-
actually,
that's
I didn't
good.
even think of that. That's actually a good
That's
idea.
great. That's great storytelling right there, though. Honestly,
I mean, no, I'm joking.
I mean that's what you do. You're good at the film thing. You're good at the film thing.
So, Mike,
So,
what'd you
yeah.
think about their plan to go back in time and get the stones? Did you think it was a good plan when you were watching it?
Usually I don't like time travel like into this regard because I feel like it's a cop out, but I think it was executed very nicely, and after it was all said and done, I was okay with it. Especially because it was clearly like I didn't mind it, and I thought that it was necessary and nice to see the different, like, them sort of pay tribute to all their past work and all their past movies, and plus we got a lot of good scenes out of it. Like, I thought it was interesting to see what happened after, like, the moments after the Battle of New York, and then Cap fighting himself. And how
Oh,
he
yeah,
was
that
annoyed.
was good.
That
He was
Hell
annoyed.
Hydra was everything.
The
Yeah.
2012
Listen.
Cap was like, I could do this all day.
I know for me and Rich, that Hail Hydra was so good
Everything.
because
oh my God.
from Secret
Secret
Empire,
I screamed.
yeah, that secret, when he said, I'll never forget reading that issue when he was on that fucking airplane. He threw Rick, what was his name? Rick Jones.
Rick Jones.
Out the back of the airplane, just killed him, and it was like Hail Hydra. I was like, oh shit, they doing it on the fucking movie. That was so cool. Mike, so while we're talking about the times when they went back in the past, what do you think about the scene on what the fuck's that planet called with the Soul Stone?
Oh, I have one. This is where one of my few complaints.
Ver-
comes in.
it's not
Volmir.
Vermeer.
Volmir,
Vormir,
yeah.
Nebula was involved in, like, she was telling them where the two stones in space were, Vormir and that other place that I always forget.
Morag.
She knew that Thanos went there with Gamora and left with the Soul Stone. I think it's safe to assume that she was aware that someone had to die for the Soul Stone. So why
She
wasn't
may
she
not
like?
have been aware that someone had to die. She may have just assumed
They
Thanos
killed
killed
her.
her
Yeah.
for keeping the secret or whatever.
I guess, but I
No,
don't know.
you. How would you if we weren't on the planet?
Yeah,
how would
nobody
you
knew.
know?
Nobody knew.
I don't
think
That was
anybody
the whole
knew.
thing in Infinity War.
Technically,
Where's
nobody
the Soul
knew.
Stone?
Yeah.
Now, my issue with that, I'll let my Big Mike get to it, but I'll just say this. My issue with that is, I remember, and maybe I'm nitpicking or somebody can fix this for me, but I remember in Infinity War, Red Skull saying, like, in order to get the Soul Stone, you have to give up what you love most.
Most right.
They
Right.
changed that for Endgame and says that which you love.
Yeah,
I
because
think
They
that was
still
the
did say Infinity War, Soul
the
Verse.
PS4. Oh, I'm sorry, Big Mike.
no, go ahead,
I'm
Rich.
just saying, in Infinity War, they did say, I mean, he said you have to give up what you love most, but they still did say a soul for a soul.
Right. What I think is
Okay.
the distinction between the two situations is Infinity War, Red Skull knows that of all the things
Yes.
in Thanos' world, he loves Gamora the most. And that in the scenario in which Red Skull is presented with Widow and Hawkeye, that they don't love each other the most, but they have an intense love for each other. They have like a, band of brothers love for each other. And so in that case, it would be more accurate to say we know you love each other. One of y'all got to go. Versus saying
I also think
when you love the most.
I also think it's because obviously she may very well okay, I'll say it like this. Given that his family is dead and that would be the thing that he loves the most, I think the next best thing.
Oh, that's a great point.
The fact that his
that's what I was
family
at with the decimation.
is dead.
Right. That's a good point.
They can't sacrifice.
So whoever's alive, who he
left?
loves most, is probably Nat.
Which makes
Because it needs to be a soul. Because I was ready for it to be a thing where he just looks up at the sky when he was like, hello. I didn't realize he was talking to Red Skull the first time. I thought he was looking up to say, look, I gave up everything already. Like, give me the stone.
Right.
Yeah.
Also, I would have loved to have seen when Cap was putting the stones back, his reaction when he finds Red Skull.
Oh, yeah,
Oh,
that's
gosh.
probably good.
I
Also wanna
really
know-
want a Russo's director's cut and give me the 4 hour and 25 whatever the fuck it was coming in at, and show me the scene where Cap goes in and he's just like, what the fuck? I was coming to return stones. Now I gotta fight an ethereal version of Red Skull. Like it would.
Also, how do how put that stone back? Do you
just
kinda,
give it
like,
to
look
him.
up
I think you just
throw
give
it?
it to.
Yeah,
you
I
just
think you
give it
just
to
give
him.
it to him.
I-
It's
I
a
w-
tough one because you would hope that you could get her back in the trade, but I think it's a one and done transact. I think what they're
Well, they
claiming
Oh,
is
I
one
didn't
and
even
done
think of that
transact.
either.
The stone. They used the stone. You can't. I wonder if when you destroy the stones, you get them back.
No,
I don't think so.
no,
because
not
it's
when
been
you
They're
used
destroy
trapped
the
already.
at that.
stones.
They're
Yeah.
gone by that
Yeah.
point.
Mike, you know the answer to that because if Thanos destroyed the stones in the beginning of the film, so everybody would have been back.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm not saying everybody. I'm saying just the people that were sacrificed.
Because
Oh,
basically
the
at
Soul
this
Stone.
point,
Okay.
who is left post Endgame in the Soul World at this point is Gamora
Gamora.
and Widow, and they're just two little solo folks chilling in the Soul.
So
my
when
friend,
go ahead,
my
Mike.
friend PJ, Brandon knows PJ. He made an interesting realization that 3 of the Avengers died, or were in, like, I don't know if you count Cap like as dying, but are out of the picture. 3 of them remain, so everything was still perfectly balanced.
Yep.
Oh,
Yeah.
And I
that's a good
also
point.
think about it like if you think about the versions of them post 2023, Thanos was. I hate to do this. I'm going to take a page out of Deep Palm's book. Thanos was right because he made them the best version of themselves.
Right.
That's true.
So-
He's
Sure.
that coach. He's that coach that you want to like. You know, you go back to like the high school
Well-
reunion.
He's
you wanna
Bobby
punch
Knight.
him in the throat.
Thanos is
He's
Bobby Knight.
He's Bobby Knight.
What I
Got to the
will
promised
say
land,
though. No, okay, you're right. They're the best of themselves by the point of the war, but we got to talk about Cap.
All right, hold on. I got something to say before we get to Cap. Big Mike and anybody else who wants to jump in, because this is what I'm curious to see. When they both were on Volmir, did everyone think it was going to be Black Widow?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had a. I mean, because you knew at the end of the movie, pretty much everyone was going to come back one way or another. You didn't really know exactly how, but you knew he was going to get his family back, and Nat essentially has nobody other than the Avengers. So
Correct.
There was no
also-
way in my head. I was like, they're not going to kill Hawkeye when he is supposed to get his family back. Like, I think they did a really good job in that kind of dispute where it's like he was saying, I've done all these such terrible things, killed so many people, like my family is never going to accept me again. But Nat was just like, well, you did. Like, you know what I did. You know the bad things I was doing, and you still took me in. So I think that was a really good exchange between them. But there was no way I thought Hawkeye was going to die.
He's
at all.
not enough of a sacrifice. And basically, they told us 2 times that it was going to be Black Widow. The first time was, I've got red in my ledger and I want to wipe it out in Avengers. And the second time is 1 second before they go into the time travel. She says, see you in a minute. And you're like, oh, fuck, she's gone.
Yeah, that's true.
This goes back to what I said about how each Avenger was going to get their perfect like closure, perfect ending.
Yeah.
That's how she gets hers. Like
Yeah.
she was never going to be able to live with herself. I mean, she was able to get by, but she never really forgave herself for whatever she did in her past.
She could have
And
been
she
a
got her
really
family
cool Future Fury version, but at
I
the
would've
same
liked that.
time, Hawkeye just isn't enough. Like none of us are gonna cry any tears about. And even though Hawkeye in MCU is not the mega hat wearing character that Brandon loves so much,
That Brandon hates so
Oh.
much?
It was sarcastic. It was
Yeah,
sarcastic.
yeah, get it correct.
But still, like, even though Hawkeye enters the MCU earlier than Scarlet, Scarlet is the one who gets shit done. Hawkeye was never gonna be able to defeat her. She stuck to her guns. She was gonna follow it through. And of any character, if you were gonna kill off Cap and Iron Man in the same movie, it absolutely made sense for the other sacrifice to be Scarlet.
So what is her movie going to take place? Is it going to be the 5 years? It's going to
Yeah,
be
it's gonna be a prequel. No, it's well.
Could be in that 5 year in between.
I heard it was going to be a prequel, and Taskmaster was going to be the villain.
I feel like it has to be Budapest, right? They talk about it so much.
Yeah.
I would love
And
to
talk
see
about what she did to get that red in her ledger. Like
Mhm.
even her hair, I loved her hair.
Yes,
The fact that she
loved
had it went from that perfect, like for me, especially when I went to Russia, like that when she showed up in Iron Man 2, that was like every Russian woman's red hair I saw. And then by the time you get to 2023, we don't have Dwayne Reed, we don't have all these other things working. She is just like she's
she
just
just let
trying to
that
make
shit
it work.
grow out.
Yeah, and she was just fed up. Like you saw her foot was up there. I'm surprised they didn't have a hole in her sock just to complete the look. She was ragged and she was just holding on. So when she sacrificed herself, it was again back to your point about the perfect mirror of like 3 and 3. We saw Gamora get tossed. She willingly removed her hand and jumped and sacrificed herself. And so that balance was like really cool. And I appreciated the fact that she stayed dead. And that made the sacrifice even more worthy.
Yeah.
Exactly.
More important,
exactly.
yeah.
But also, how does Hawkeye get the stone? I mean, basically, she sacrificed herself.
Yeah, I was
He
going to
didn't.
say, he didn't
So it's a
sacrifice
kind of a
anything.
weird thing that he ends up with the stone, with the exception of the fact that 2 people showed up, 1 person left. You get the stone, bruh. You know, like I
That's
don't
it.
know.
I feel like
how
Red Skull
else
was
he-
like, all right, good enough.
Yeah.
I think it was like a conscious decision. Like he knew, kind of like when at the end, when the Hulk decimation and then also the Tony decimation happens, or I'll just say the snaps because you're right, decimation's 10. The snaps happen. They're consciously saying, "I want this to happen," not just
Right.
So
I
I think
also-
that's how Red Skull made it count.
Yeah, I
That
also
could-
think the fact that Hawkeye has to live with the fact that he was not able to sacrifice himself is the sacrifice that
Yeah.
he's making.
Which
Yeah,
is
that's it.
Red Skull just being a whole piece, as is his tradition.
So
There's just so much that Hawkeye would have to do to become even remotely
No, yeah.
interesting.
It's not. There's nothing he could do. There's really
So
nothing.
before we move past these past scenes, I need to go back to Rich and Sharmane because they're the best on this time travel thing. Can y'all explain
Oh.
to me?
My
How-
husband just texted me, do I need to come in there when we were talking time travel before? So I definitely fucked up somewhere because he could hear me. But let's go ahead.
Can someone explain to me how the Gamora memory time travel thing worked?
Yeah, I was gonna ask that too.
She doesn't know anything because she's 2014 Gamora. So,
Right.
oh no,
Essentially,
I'm sorry. Or do you mean Nebula? With
Nebula.
No.
My bad. Yeah,
Oh, I
the
can
Nebula
explain
memory
that.
thing.
Let me-
y'all, that's like sharing Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
Like you got the same password.
On the
If I'm
same
on your
network, yeah.
Brendan, I could take all your information if I wanted to, just like she can access her own network.
Oh,
They're in
so
the
that was
same-
basically just a tech thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was
Yeah.
iCloud.
Yeah.
Okay.
She got she got
Because when
iCloud
they
hacked on herself.
separate from they separate from their, essentially, I'm gonna say the word wrong again, timelines, they no longer have that connection. They're in the same year sharing, and their network just, I guess, is galactic at that point because they're
And-
across.
But I mean, it's still Nebula. So Nebula is Nebula in her timeline. That's why she was able to pull from the data.
So
that
do
she
you
can
like-
currently see?
They specifically said her consciousness and like her data, like they basically, yeah, basically that's what it was. She was backed up to her iCloud.
So do you like
now, the
how
only reason that wouldn't have happened is if they went back far enough in time where Thanos hadn't messed with her to that point.
Okay.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
So do you like how they use Nebula as the way for Thanos to figure things out?
Yeah, help your daddy do something. That's
It
what's up.
works.
She was legit my
I like
favorite
that a
character
lot.
in this movie
Oh, really?
because she connected with me in a way I did not see coming. Mainly because if you notice throughout the movie, she got to see herself in a way that I think only Hugh Jackman, when he got to go back in time and see the Wolverine, could see it. Because she was a sociopath that just wanted the respect of her abusive father. And now she's a grown woman that has friends. Like, look at the way she was joking with Rhodey when Ant-Man showed up. She's like, Rhodey. Like, that clicked in my brain when she said Rhodey instead of like Rhodes or something. She's like, Rhodey, there's an idiot in the landing pad.
Well, they connected on the part that when they got the Morag,
amputees.
To being amputees.
Oh, but I think they had already connected before that. But like when they got there, he could get to her when she grabbed the Power Stone and say, "Listen, we are who we are. We work with what we got."
Yeah,
just a quick update. They're quantumly entangled. That's why Nebula and Nebula are quantumly entangled.
Thank you. Hubs came through.
Yeah, he sent me a text message.
See, that's what we needed here. So yeah,
evidently I'm loud as fuck because he can hear me in the other room with the door closed, and he's texting me.
It's just good. I'm getting excited. My 7-year-old's gonna be waking up like, remember what happened when Tony was there for 3 weeks? We saw that she was. I don't want to use human because she's not Terran, but she gave up the rations because she wanted him. She picked him up and basically caressed him and put him in the chair. But she was playing the paper football. Like, she smiled. Like, she really could, like, that 3 weeks, while it was harrowing for Tony, was probably the thing that most made her a member of the Avengers, because she saw how fragile life was and how much she could fit without being seeking anyone's approval. Like, that was powerful to me. And it, like, she cried just like Gamora cried when Thanos died.
Oh, okay. Yeah. There's one more thing from these. That is true. There's one more thing from this time. You're the best
of these recaps. I swear.
I got 3 pages of notes, man. I took it serious.
Just saying, the best Black Panther thing ever.
Oh yeah, that was really good.
They're like, oh my god.
Listen. At some point when we start talking about Tony, I'm gonna get into the fact that my dad is a recovering alcoholic, and he's been my platonic ideal for like recovery, and you can always get better. And I might start crying, so I'm just gonna warn you now.
Oh yeah, we're all gonna get there with Tony. So the last thing in these pastimes, I think, is where the hell is Loki?
Loki is a problem, but there is a way to there's a fun way that to answer it.
Disney
which
Plus
has to do Disney Plus, which has to do with the Ancient One. Yeah. She can sparkly glowy catch him. Cap could come back to return.
Well, here's the thing: Loki has the space stone, not the time stone.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter. To her point, like, think about like this: Loki created that when they did that example with Banner and the Ancient One, where you scramble and you make your own. Like right now, he's making his own multiverse because he's splintered off he is what shouldn't be. If you ever saw, and this is going to be another dumb TV show, I equated it to, if you ever saw Quantum Leap.
Quantum Leap.
This is basically like Loki's show, and to me, it's going to be a combination of that and the time cop part of Legends of Tomorrow right now, where Loki is basically going to be running away from time and space itself, because he's going to have the Ancient One, he's going to have Tony, he's going to have Steve, and he's going to have basically the universe itself trying to conspire against him to return things back to the natural way of being.
Oh yeah, because he's replacing the space stone that they got from the SHIELD facility, but that space stone is still out of time.
Right.
So that has to get replaced, or the timeline's
no
going to be
matter
fucked.
what, whenever they do finally catch up with Loki, however they do, all you need to know is that when he blips back, he's going to blip back at the exact same moment.
He died.
And he won't. Yeah. He's just going to blip back.
Okay. So
that's why he's still going. That's why they still have the exact Tesseract to use as the power to get them back to Asgard at the end of Avengers. Okay. Because all that still has to happen.
So before we get into, actually, you know what? We'll get to the Tony stuff after this. So the next thing was the big battle. So they all get the stones. They're back in the Avengers facility in New York. And Hulk. What do you think about? Do you like the logic that they use that Hulk has to be the one that did the snap?
Damn right.
Yeah.
Because what can kill him?
Everybody needs a redemption moment, right? So in the case of Scarlet, she gets redeemed by sacrificing herself, as does Iron Man. For Hulk tells you the story. He failed twice. First as the Hulk when he couldn't defeat Thanos on the ship, and then later as Banner, as the team not being able to fit. So this is his, not to mention the fact that he's filled with gamma. this is his way to redeem the actions that didn't work out for him in the past. This is how he can move on. Is he has to put up that sacrifice. He doesn't need to die, but he needs to put his body at risk.
But Kenny, we don't know that the Hulk can die. So
Well, and there's that.
Yeah, we don't know that yet. So Hulk snaps, brings everybody back, and then immediately they get bombed, and we go into the big final battle. So for me, this was the most incredible cinematic experience I've ever had because
I agree.
Yep.
Yeah.
I read comic books every fucking day, and also, you don't even get big battles like that except in like the biggest crossover events. Like the biggest crossover events is when you get a big battle like that, and they were able to do that. But it wasn't just like computer animation people fighting, because you got to see people. The characters were still fighting in the way that they would fight. So like Black Panther was quick and jumping and doing the absorption thing and hitting the ground. These shows Drax like jumping on somebody's back and stabbing them. Valkyrie flying through the air on the
where did she get her Pegasus?
Where did she get her Pegasus? Yeah.
That's a great. Well, that's a great question.
Did any of you notice
Pegasus was helping him out with the sprout shoes and all that.
Did any of you notice Howard the Duck?
Yes.
What? He was
Where
there?
was he? Where
Howard
was he?
the Duck is in the final fight.
No, he's not.
Oh,
Yes,
yeah,
he
look it up.
is.
What?
Share my screen. Hold on. Give me a second.
I missed it. I love Howard the Duck. I missed that.
We both love Howard.
Oh shit.
See, and then that would have satisfied a little bit of what I was telling you, Brandon, about how I wish that they, like in the 5 years, they were just collecting powered people so that when he calls Avengers Assemble, there's just a shit ton of people. That would have been one of those little Easter eggs that I would have been super excited to see, but I missed that shit. Not yet. It's black for me. Okay.
Oh, I see it.
Oh,
right
look
here.
at Howard the
Hey,
Duck.
look at that.
Oh man.
Oh wow, I see him. Okay.
That's
Wow.
amazing.
Damn, that's so cool. I didn't even notice that. That's dope. I love Howard the
PJ
Duck.
brought it to my attention again. Yeah, but he was there.
And so the initial thing is they all get blown up, and then they're trapped. Some of them are trapped down below, and so you get basically our version of the Trinity, I guess, is Cap, Iron Man, and Thor fighting Thanos. So I will go to Big Mike on this because he's been quiet for a little bit. Big Mike, how'd you feel about when Cap picked up Mjolnir?
I've said it before. I'll say it a million times. That was probably my favorite movie ever in the entire MCU, maybe even in movie history. I mean, Cap's my guy. Thor is also my guy. I've really been torn in who I like more, but watching both of them kick the shit out of Thanos, tag teaming it with Mjolnir and Stormbreaker was unbelievable to watch.
You take the little one.
Yeah, easily my favorite.
Listen.
moment in
I don't know. Everybody's theater just gasps when that happens. Because at my theater gasped and then
I
erupted.
knew it was going to come, but I didn't care. It was
Ours,
amazing.
Ours just erupted.
I screamed. And listen, I am not a big Captain America fan. I do like Chris Evans' Captain America, but Captain America as a character does create problems for my mixed brown ass. But okay, when he grabbed that shit, I screamed so loud. I had no idea I wanted to or needed to see that at all. I had no idea until that very moment. I flipped out.
Thor's like, I knew it. I knew it. By the way, okay, here's the funniest thing. How did Captain America immediately know how to do combinations with the shield and Mjolnir?
You know what I'm saying?
It's like he's been planning that. I guarantee
Here's the
you.
thing, Brandon. I've been waiting for this one. Because when they all got drunk, because I was talking to my coworker about this at lunch today. When they all got drunk in Age of Ultron at the beginning, and he tried to lift it up, he was still burdened by the secrets of Bucky.
Oh,
When he
our
was
roommate
worthy,
Tom said that. I was going to say.
he got the download, and so he basically got it all. Once you're worthy, you're worthy.
Oh.
That's a great point.
Because that was a mirror to me of the same thing when Thor, like for me, I didn't say anything because I loved Fat Thor, because he, from the very beginning of this movie, Homeboy had a beer and a basket of biscuits.
Yes.
As they're talking about taking on Thanos. Like he was already in his feelings. But when he met his mom and he put out his hand for Mjolnir and it came to him, he realized he was even in that
still
fight,
worthy.
Even if I'm still worthy.
That gave me
That is good.
I mean, Thor was my favorite character this whole movie. to see many sides of him and to see that pain he really felt, and to be able. Rocket was everybody's empath. Like Rocket was there for everybody's empath speech in his story. I mean, in his movie. And
Rocket was also kind of a point of view character for different scenes.
Yeah.
Which was
he was great. Yeah, it was.
So I have a list here of the people that were in this battle. So Iron Man, Cap, Thor, Hawkeye.
Before you do that, Brandon, I'm so sorry. I lost my mind when Tony used, and it happened really quick when he first got the hammer. He used the combo that broke up the fight in the first Avengers movie to not only hit Thanos but get both of the weapons to come back to him.
Oh yeah.
Tony used the hammer?
I'm sorry, Steve. I keep
yeah, Steve did it.
Steve, when he was like, "You want the God of Thunder?" He's like, "Oh," and then bang,
he threw the shield and then threw the hammer at it. Yeah. Yeah, that was like, see, you know, like we get those moments. I don't mean to shit on other movies, but fuck it, I hate Fox. We get those moments in the Marvel movies, but like you never got the fastball special for real in any of those X-Men movies ever. But they give you this in these movies. So we had Cap, we had Thor, Hawkeye, Hulk, Falcon, War Machine, Scarlet Witch, Ant-Man, Wasp, Spider-Man, Star-Lord, Nebula, Gamora, Drax, Rocket, Groot, Mantis, Doctor Strange, Wong, Black Panther, Okoye, Bucky, Valkyrie, Captain Marvel. Then we had Shuri, and M'Baku was there, Pepper Potts, Korg, Korg and Meek, the sorcerers that we saw from Doctor Strange, Wakanda's, just like people in the army, Howard the Duck, some of the Ravengers was there that we from Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah, they were.
The Ravengers were there, Thanos, Ebony Maw, Corvus Glaive, Proxima Midnight, Call Obsidian, the Outriders, the Shatari. So we got everyone we've ever seen.
Yeah.
And Aquaman.
Oh, when Ant-Man, like again, Ant-Man, another character, don't really give that much a shit about, but when he punched that fucking Jotari worm flying snake thing, whatever the fuck.
That was awesome.
Another awesome moment.
Also,
and he
it was
on Homeboy. He steps on God damn it! Why can't I think of the big dude's name?
Oh, from Thanos' dude. Call Obsidian.
Yeah.
It was also really cool to see the OG,
that fool out.
the OG Ant-Man helmet with Hank Pym's office.
Yeah, that was a nice little moment.
Someone, PJ again, he was one of the people that came. He was like, if you had told me like 8 years ago that in a couple years I would see Giant Man step on a large alien space whale in a fight for the Infinity Gauntlet with Thanos, I would have checked you into an insane asylum.
Here's another thing about that fight. How fucking powerful is Thanos? Because he didn't have the gauntlet for most of that.
Stones, yeah.
And he's fighting Steve and Thor and Iron Man.
Captain Marvel, yeah.
And like he's just beating the shit out. Like he just keeps coming back. Although I think if he didn't do the suicide bomb thing, Scarlet Witch was about to kill him.
He was going.
Yeah.
He was about to die.
I was genuinely scared in that moment when he calls to rain fire. His face looks like he's
it looked like she was going to crucify him and impale him with his own weapon.
Yes,
she was doing one little thing at a time with her flicks. You know, she's doing the flicks, and little things were popping off of him and stretching him out at the same time. He knew he was about to get obliterated.
So for the character that can say no more mutants, and then there's no more mutants, I'm glad that they're giving her like supreme high levels of power in this universe.
Yeah.
Although I heard a lot of people complaining about like you can't have super powerful people in the MCU because of how they've written it, and I'm like, they've pretty much thrown that theory out the window these last two movies. But I did say that
about the fact that Carol got CTE from the Power Stone because he headbutted her, and she was like no. And then he did the Arya special with the Power Stone, and Tiger uppercutted her into Alpha Centauri.
And she was done. Carol was done.
And she knew it too because her eyes got real big when he popped that stone. Before he pops her, her eyes get real big. She knew she was in for it.
She was like Cleveland Brown. No.
But Carol was whipping his ass. Carol was whipping him with the stones.
Yeah.
Like she was fighting him with the stones.
Which is why it was so good that it took her so long to get to the fight, because if she was there the whole time, you wouldn't be able to understand how, like, she's way too OP.
Yeah, Carol is Daenerys' dragons. But she's all three of them in one. Like one person.
I loved that headbutt. That headbutt was amazing.
Yeah, so
And
that
I
made
love
me
the
think.
fact that she filmed that movie first.
Yeah, before
So
Captain Marvel.
people were complaining like, "Oh, she's wearing makeup in this one. Why'd you guys make her wear?" The Russos like, we told her to do whatever she thinks Carol would do. So she started out like makeup, very militant, to the point where, like we had mentioned earlier, she was kind of almost a jerk. But then by the time she got done, the coolest thing to me with her was by the time we got to the big battle, she had figured out the personality she wanted for Captain Marvel.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's all in there when she goes to grab the gauntlet from Spider-Man.
Yeah.
She's like, "Hey, Peter Parker, I hear you have something for me."
That was so
Like, that's
cool
her.
to me. That just put a big
Yeah.
ass smile on my face. So speaking of this fight, Charmaine, what'd you think about the A-Force scene? All the women getting together.
I mean, I'm used to being the solo girl in a group of boys. Like that's been that was me living with my cousins and my brother. Like that was my whole trajectory, my friends and stuff like that. But I will not lie, seeing all those women pop up and having Okoye not quite say Scarlett's line, but imply what Scarlett said in Infinity War, like she's got help. And that whole sisterhood thing, I'm not gonna lie, it choked me up, and I want that shit as a big poster on my wall. Like I want that as a panoramic because that was awesome. I don't care. I've heard people say it's forced and all this kind of shit, and I'm like, you know what? Force the shit out of it and let me see all of them, because you had Valkyrie and a Pegasus. I mean, even Mantis pulled a fight pose as opposed to her little creepy hand things that she was doing. Like I was 100% in for it, and that made me feel more girl power than I kind of ever am inclined.
Like we just had for the last hour a great time travel conversation. We should have had that with Cable at some point.
Oh yeah.
In a movie outside
my God.
Right.
Cable and Bishop. Cable, that Deadpool, and oh my God, we should have been having a Cable Deadpool movie.
How is the X-Men animated series still my go-to like syllabus for figuring out time travel?
You know what
I'm
saying?
Beat Apocalypse because he always can't be beaten. Like that broke my brain when I was like 12 years old. I was like, they keep going back and they keep losing, and then he jumps back and he can't lose. Like, does this mean like that broke the whole Back to the Future for me? It was like no matter what they do, Apocalypse wins. He just wins sooner or later.
How much did you enjoy fucking Ant-Man fucking... Oh, that's his go-to shit. Back to the Future, yeah. That shit was so funny.
I also like that he mentioned Hot Tub Time Machine with all his real life buddies are in Hot Tub Time Machine and shit.
Yeah.
Oh, how about the fact that Winter Soldier was the main bad guy in Hot Tub Time Machine?
Oh, Sebastian was?
Oh shit, he is. He's the preppy
He really is.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
That's
mind blowing right there. You see,
America. They got the Ginobili.
All right, so
I forgot that was him.
Look at that synchronicity, yo. That shit's crazy.
So
yo.
Rich,
because it's the Russos, and that's the thing. You had people who had spent their entire lives doing like comedy, and Marvel took a risk and let them direct action, and they can have fun with things like that.
How do y'all feel about the Russo cameo as the first openly gay character in the Marvel MCU?
They put their money where their mouth is. Oh, I'm sorry.
So one more time, I didn't hear what happened.
Oh yeah, when he was in
the Russo cameo, he plays what has been announced as the first openly gay character in the MCU.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, because he said
that was one of the Russo brothers.
Oh. Yeah. The only problem that I have with it being that particular Russo is that he is also in Winter Soldier. He is the doctor.
He's one of the SHIELD people, right?
No, he's the doctor that gets killed and stuck in the bathtub.
Oh crap! You're right.
Yeah, but maybe he wasn't.
So they fucked up with that.
But maybe he wasn't playing a gay character.
That's one of my nitpicky things. I'm okay for a director wanting to cameo himself. I prefer usually when they're not a big personality that you're like super familiar with. I prefer that they're just kind of in a scene somewhere or whatever. But he gave himself a scene.
Well, one of the Russo's daughters
was like, "I got you."
One of the Russo's daughters was Hawkeye's daughter.
So that's a nitpicky thing, but I was curious if anybody caught that as being like the first openly gay character in the MCU.
Well, one of the Russo's daughters was Hawkeye's daughter.
Didn't know. Thank you.
Did y'all know that?
Thank you. You're such an idiot.
I feel like nobody. Can y'all hear me?
Sharing is caring. Damn it.
We're
growing.
Goodness, Devin.
Oh shit.
Brandon, you ready?
Okay, I got.
Hold on.
Oh, we're not recording.
No. Oh fuck. Hold up.
I don't know. Where's Brandon at?
Sounds like Brandon might have left.
No, hello,
he
can
went
y'all
to
hear
his
me?
own planet.
He's
All
on
right,
mute right
I
now.
need to
Brandon's on
get you
mute right
guys
now.
to the question though.
Can y'all hear
Anybody
me?
else concerned about this? They only make one reference to the environmental impact of Thanos' snap in the pot of whales in the Hudson, and then now you've just snapped everybody back after 5 years, where they've already panned over New York and showed us
Hello?
that they are not living life.
Nope.
What's the
That's the
agriculture
last of
like?
us.
Now again. This happened last year, man. I'm so mad.
It's
This has been
okay. At
happening
least
with
this stuff is
Spike
not
Lee.
All
wrong.
right, well,
I got an hour and 15 minutes. So whatever after that I didn't get.
Okay.
Oh yeah, we've been talking for a good 10 minutes.
We
though,
talked
so.
about we're in the middle of the environmental impact, but we were talking about the first openly gay character.
I didn't get any of that, but I heard it.
Oh, okay, so let's do with the environmental stuff. The first thing I thought about was this is like Thanos is basically the easiest allegory for like the weakest minded fascist ever, because you have the easy way out is kill everybody.
Mm-hmm.
What about you? And also he's doing a very like agrarian based lifestyle. Like he goes home, he becomes a farmer.
Right.
Who's gonna become a farmer living in? I'm in Bed-Stuy. I'm not gonna suddenly become a farmer.
Right. And it looks
And
like
so-
they don't do anything to the world. It looks like they left cars where cars were. Like they just they didn't advance anyway. They basically, it was a planetary depression in which nobody seemed to have like thrived during that
like
time.
Captain America even became Sam. He basically became Sam in the Winter Soldier, having support groups saying like if we don't make most of this world, he should have just snapped us all, which he then says later, like I'm gonna snap you all.
Right. And then you got basically this like non-life existence afterwards, and now you re-snap everybody back, and that's all the animals, that's all the people, and that's probably with less resources than at the time of the original snapping. So Earth is fucked, and if Marvel doesn't address that in the next set of movies,
Well, everybody's back now.
Yeah, everybody's back, but the resources aren't.
Right,
Because-
like that's
okay.
where someone like
'Cause
Stark.
of production.
They basically came back in 2023. So there's basically been 5 years of these people not existing, but the world has not advanced. They have not thrived. They have not increased production, basically.
And similar to that, Peter Parker came back the same age that he was when he disappeared, and all the other people grew older. And his movie trailer for the next one, I guess all of his friends and every relevant character in Spider-Man's universe also.
That's exactly what.
Vanished.
I
Well, there's
because-
only like. Well, here's the thing. That's not that unrealistic because there's only like 5 of them, and we had 5
like
heroes.
all of the Guardians were snapped.
Yeah, we
except
had
for
5
one.
heroes
So
get
it's
snapped.
conceivable.
So it's not even that really ridiculous that his 6 friends got snapped too. Well, yeah, that probably could happen. That would make sense to me. So I heard you guys were couldn't hear me. Y'all were talking about one of the Russos being the first openly gay character, and I was saying like maybe in Civil War he wasn't playing a gay character, so that's why they don't count that.
No, what I'm saying is that the problem with that particular
He's
Russo's
dead.
cameo is that he played the doctor in Winter Soldier that was murdered and left in the bathtub that the German dude took the place of.
Mm-hmm.
And
Strunk.
I never remember
Oh, no,
anybody's
Strunk.
names.
Zemo.
So Zemo, yeah, there you go. Simo. So the problem is that it's just a nitpicky thing on my part. It's that Russo is that guy. And now he's this new guy in the same universe as the first.
They did that with
That's
Digimon
not a big
Hansu.
deal. Doctor Strange. I mean,
Digimon
Benedict
Hansu.
Cumberbatch played Doctor Strange.
Digimon
and
Hansu was
Dormammu.
in Guardians of the Galaxy, and then he was in Captain Marvel.
He's the same guy.
No, he's not.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, he
he's
is.
the same guy. He's a Kree.
He's the same guy in both films.
Both
Yeah,
films.
because he's
Kree.
originally
But also-
a part of the commando unit, and then he becomes a zealot under
Oh,
Ronan.
okay.
Ronan.
Also-
Yeah, he's the same dude.
Benedict Cumberbatch is Doctor Strange and
And
Dormammu,
Yeah,
and
but
the
no
woman,
one's looking at Dormammu.
the woman from from Captain America: Civil War is the bad guy of Luke Cage.
That
you-
don't really count.
Yeah, that don't count. Yeah,
That don't count. Also, did you know the
Also,
other
no one
Russo's
cares
daughter is the person who is Hawkeye's daughter in the film?
Oh, I was wondering who they were because also the 3 kids that take a picture with Hulk look like they're all actual siblings, and I was wondering if they were one of the Russo's kids.
Yeah, I don't know that, but I know. Yeah, I know the girl who was playing Hawkeye's daughter is one of their kids. Because a lot of people thought that was Kate Bishop, and I was like, no, that's not Kate Bishop. That's just his daughter. All right, so this whole thing's gonna be mismatched when I get done because of my stupid recorder. But so let's get to some of these things. So, Rich, talk about the Iron Man scene at the end. Him getting a gauntlet, him snapping the gauntlet, him passing away, and kind of what that meant in the MCU and what that meant to you.
Well, I mean, I think for the MCU, it was a great goodbye to the connective tissue that's been Robert Downey Jr. to this whole thing. I mean, I remember when he was first cast, it was something where people were like, what is he doing as much as what are they doing? Because I was a fan of Ally McBeal, and I remember him coming out of jail and getting work release to keep act. That's how good an actor he was. Like, the judge was like, okay, you can keep doing this thing. You got nominated for an Emmy. Just don't kill anybody and run into any more stores on Rodeo Drive. And he's like, can't guarantee it. And sure enough, like he does that. And then now you get to the end of this, 22 films in, and he not only is he's a better Tony. Cam mentioned it. He's a better Tony Stark than Tony Stark was, to the point where the little tics, the alcoholism, and some of the things he created for himself as a character and himself as Robert Downey Jr. became the things they created in Marvel Comics that shaped Tony, to the point where, like, for me, like I said, being the son of an alcoholic, seeing the relationship between him and Carol as both alcoholics, being her sponsor and leading to the Second Civil War, that wouldn't have happened and been as powerful without Robert Downey Jr. So that's amazing to me.
Wow. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and the Iron Man in the comic books now is Robert Downey Jr. Like, they changed how he looked. They changed his speech pattern. Like, his speech pattern in the books is very similar to how he speaks in the movies. Like, because he really owned that character.
It's actually really hard to separate, because I have times when I'm talking about him as Tony where I'm thinking of him as Robert. Like, they seem to be in the same way that Tony can't not be Iron Man. I feel like Robert Downey Jr. can't not be Tony and Iron Man. And
think about how much, like, I know Brandon and Devin are wrestling fans, and Mike kind of tolerates us from time to time. The funny thing for me is he did something in a time before Me Too, before anything, where he said, I'm not doing any more movies unless you pay everybody else out of this core group the same. Most people wouldn't have done that. Most people would have looked sideways. Just like when Steve Rogers, I'm sorry, same thing for me. Steve and Chris Evans are going to be forever linked. Because when Chris Evans, I remember that featurette. That's what sold me on him more than like any of the movies. That featurette where Frank freaking Grillo starts talking about how Italians are just as oppressed and persecuted as black people. And Sebastian Stan just basically says, get the F out of here. And he looks at him and is like, are you freaking serious right now? And just browbeats that man into oblivion. Like, that's where I was like, this man and then when, the stuff he does with Trump on Twitter, to the point where Feige's like, yeah, the characters are merging. Robert Downey Jr. is the best example of that. And I really, like, that scene was perfect. And him ending with, I am Iron Man.
Oh, God. The tears. The throat closing tears when he said, I am Iron Man.
And when Pepper got to look at him and say, like, she put
can rest
brave,
now.
I don't like Gwyneth Paltrow either, but
yes,
you could see why she got an Oscar when she did that. And that's like another crazy thing we can get to. There's like 20 Oscar winners in the MCU, and they're all used in the perfect way. It's not like for just
except Brie Larson.
Wait, you don't like Brie Larson?
Brie Larson has an Oscar.
She has an Oscar,
yeah, she does have an Oscar.
But what's amazing is that Marvel has made these comic book movies, these kids movies, into legit acting. Like, that's what separates Marvel from the X-Men movies, the Fox, all that kind of stuff, is that these are legitimate, these are films.
Well, here's the thing. Fox
happen to be about
Fox took themselves so seriously, and they said, we want to make these acting movies with these comic book characters. And what they don't realize is that Marvel did that while still making comic book movies, which is what they always should have been. And now, here's the thing that these other studios need to think. Now, A-list actors want to get in all these movies, A-list directors want to direct all these movies. You think Ava DuVernay would be wanting to direct a New Guys movie if it wasn't for the MCU? Absolutely not.
Well, she was offered Black Panther, but she stepped
Yeah.
back because she then thinks she was prepared to be able to pull it off. And I think seeing maybe what Ryan did and being friends with Ryan, and then, you know, maybe just seeing how the world has developed, she's finally ready.
And
to
seeing
do
her in
that.
A Wrinkle in Time, I think
Yeah.
that kind of gave her like the confidence, because I love that movie. Both just watching it and my son enjoyed it. Like, I think that's a great example of whatever they do in phase 4, 5, 6, whatever. Ava has a place. She can like that. If that now, if in my perfect world, they also need to bring my girl Lexi in. But,
Oh yeah,
you know,
Lexi Alexander would be great.
that.
But they don't. But you're getting Will Smith in Suicide Squad. Like, you're getting top A-list actors like saying, I want to play these characters. Like, Idris Elba's going to be in the new Suicide Squad. And this is not Marvel. 10 years ago, like, the idea that Robert Downey Jr., even at that point in his life, like Rich was saying, would take on being Iron Man, people were like, what the hell are you doing? What are you doing, dog? That's not serious acting. Like, this is not serious. And now everybody wants to be in the superhero films.
It's serious acting because of him, though. I mean, I have such an emotional attachment to Robert Downey Jr. Ever since I was little, when he was in Chaplin as a kid, that was one of my favorite movies. It's kind of hard to watch as an adult, but I fell in love with him during Weird Science. It's one of my oldest movies that I ever recorded on VHS myself when I was a kid. Like, I have loved this man. I was devastated when his life went south, and I have a lot of parallel with him because I also had alcoholic and drug deal. Well, my dad was a drug dealer for earlier part of my life, and my dad used to make me smoke weed when I was 3 and around that age in front of his friends because they thought it was funny, and they had me call it wacky weed, and they would make me puff and pass it around and stuff like that. So I had to work to make sure I didn't go down the path of my parents. And you see, Robert is like the flip side of me, in which he had a very similar early childhood, and in his case it went down the path of drugs and alcohol. In my case, I fought to make sure that it didn't, and now it's not a struggle really to be that way now. But you know, I could have been a teen mom. I could have been a drug addict and stuff like that. And so to see Robert claw himself out of just the desperation of his life, and then to turn into the biggest hit, like, and not only that, he took on the mantle of a character that I loved already, you know, and now I can't separate the two of them. So like, for me, I'm so excited that it was Robert. I'm so excited that because of his acting level, that made every subsequent movie that followed it, even the trasher films of the MCU, are way better than a lot of other things that we get because of that caliber that he set, that level that he set in his first movie. And then also, as like a mixed Japanese, for him to die the way he did, I don't even mourn it because it was so good. It was so appropriate. It was a full circle thing. And while I was sad and am sad that, you know, that means that's that potentially the end of his time in the MCU, unless he goes AI on it. It's just so perfect. Like, it's just so worthy of both Iron Man and Robert Downey Jr.
Yeah, I couldn't say it better. So then you get the funeral scene, which you get that really emotional scene with Happy and the daughter, with his daughter Morgan on the porch. And so then we kind of get into some of the tie-ups at the end of the film. And so first we get, the Guardians, Thor. We get Thor going back to New Asgard and telling Valkyrie that she's going to be the queen of Asgard going forward. So do you guys think that we're going to get a film with Valkyrie, or how do you think they're going to play that in the MCU, showing that in the MCU or in the next Thor film? Like, what do you think that's going to happen with that?
Would she not get the powers of Thor, or at least would she not get godlike powers now that she is the queen of Asgard? Is that not the possible path for them? Is that they make her Lady Thor now?
No, I think
no. She'd have the powers of as a Valkyrie. She still has godlike powers.
Yeah, she's still really powerful.
She does. Okay. Yeah. I wasn't 100% sure on her. Okay, I would love to see a Valkyrie set of movies. I mean, one, because it's Tessa, but two, because I think Valkyrie could be potentially a really interesting character. I'd like it.
Okay, cool.
I want to see Jane Foster as Thor, but homegirl thinks she's too good for it.
Yeah, no.
But Natalie Portman looks like Jane Foster in the series. Like, it drives me nuts that it's like, can you just like,
I thought she didn't do it because she was pregnant at the time, and that's why she didn't continue
wants no
on.
parts. No. She's in that Nick what's his the original not the original the second Hulk. She's in that.
Oh yeah, good. Edward Norton.
Ed Norton. She's in that. I'm too good for this.
She might not be saying that in a couple weeks.
I mean, they put her in, and they made it. They linked her so seamlessly that you think that they shot that scene with her. If you don't remember that's a cutout from Dark World, like she might come around.
I hope, because again, another Oscar winner, some person that could be just so good, especially with the cancer treatments and having to deal with every time you turn, you get sicker, and that would be something that would be very powerful. But again, and she already shaved her head for what was that movie?
V for Vendetta.
Thank you very much. Like that also, I watched that over the winter, and I was like, oh, she is freaking.
She's good. So fucking good in that movie. Yeah. I mean, honestly, my biggest dream, though, for Natalie Portman, the actress, is that she makes a Matilda movie as a grown-ass woman, but I don't think they'll ever do that. Matilda, her character from Leon, the Professional.
Oh, I love grown Matilda, not Matilda, the magical girl that could.
Right, yeah. No, I'm talking about.
Now, also a great movie.
Yes. Now, what are you guys' thoughts, real quick, given her? Because one of the things that came out in the press junket is that Miss Gillian wants to direct an MCU movie.
Has
Nebula
she
wants to direct
anything before? I'd rather
she's done light
test her
stuff
out
with
on
like
one of
BBC. She's done BBC. She does things like that, but she's like, I want to direct.
Yeah, but they give people chances all the time. Like James Gunn before Guardians of the Galaxy didn't really do anything big.
Slither.
Slither.
He did the live action.
Slither is amazingly bad in such a good
Slither.
way.
The dude who did Spider-Man Homecoming.
The Russos only did Community. They didn't do
Arrested Development.
Oh, and you're right.
Oh no, that's gold. So
yeah, but that's not a movie. It's different.
But it's pretty much a movie.
The Spider-Man
comedy too. It's a totally different ball game than coming through on Winter Soldier. Did they come through on Winter Soldier first or Civil War first?
Winter Soldier.
Like, that's a pretty different ball game. It's actually an amazing crossover on their part to be able to pull off both of those things.
The dude who did Spider-Man Homecoming literally did nothing. Where's his name? John Watts, right?
No. Tom Waits.
John Watts.
Somebody's.
This is what John Watts did before Spider-Man Homecoming. The Onion Network, like the Onion,
Yeah, the Onion. Yes.
He did shows for the Onion, a TV movie called Eugene, a TV series called The Fuzz, some more stuff for the Onion, and a bunch of shorts. He did nothing. And they gave him Spider-Man Homecoming. So, yeah, absolutely they could give him that.
Yeah, they might as well.
Absolutely. So then you get Thor.
What are your thoughts on Ant-Man, guys?
This is the first time I cared.
I enjoy Paul Rudd. So, he's so fucking funny to me.
I like Paul Rudd. I just didn't understand why Ant-Man needed 2 movies. They could have done that shit in one.
The pigeon thing. That was such a cop-out.
What pigeon thing?
What pigeon?
How he got out of the quantum realm.
Oh no, it was a rat.
My
bad.
Was a rat. Still a cop-out.
It was, but whatever, you gotta do what you gotta do. Oh, also,
I didn't even take that as the rat doing it. I took it as it just happened because, like Tony said, it was 1,000,000,000 to 1, like that you returned. It wasn't that the buttons got pushed.
The rat stepped on the buttons, yeah. But also I guess you just considered a cameo of Dr. Ken popping up and with a mustache and not being utilized at all for either comedy or anything.
He didn't even. I was waiting for him to say something, but he didn't say anything.
I was like, damn, he didn't say anything. That beard, that mustache is hilarious though.
So then we get Thor joining the Guardians and him and Star. Listen, if he's in the next Guardians movie as like a co-star, I don't think there's any funnier pairing in the MCU than Chris Pratt and Chris Hemsworth.
You think he'll be fat?
No. Back in shape, I think.
I don't know. I think he will be. I think he will be, and he'll be working out like over the course of the movie to the
It'll be
chagrin
part of their
like,
composition.
Yeah.
That would be good.
Can you imagine how funny that movie is with Drax, Thor, and Star-Lord?
But they did kind of get rid of their only brown person, so.
Oh,
I mean,
well,
I know
Gamora's
they're
still
gonna
going to be in
search
the
for
movie. Yeah, it's going to be searching.
Well, that movie's gonna have a lot going on because there's Adam Warlock
Yeah.
and maybe Nova, and now maybe Gamora.
Well, I think Nova's getting his own movie.
I have a prediction.
Nova's getting his own movie though.
I have a prediction though. Part of Adam Warlock's story is that he was partnered up with Pip the Troll and Gamora, and then Thanos, who's not here anymore, ended up killing Gamora, and then that's what drove Adam Warlock to the Avengers. But I'm willing to bet that Warlock and Gamora are teaming up right now. Maybe by the time Guardians.
We don't even know if Warlock is hatched yet.
Yeah, as far as we know, he's still in the cocoon.
He's still in the cocoon.
I think it would make sense now.
But
Yeah,
we'll
'cause
see.
at this
That
point
movie's
it's
not
been
coming out for a while.
7 years?
I think he's doing
Yes, it
he's
has.
doing Suicide Squad before then. At least on the schedule, he is.
Yeah, he's doing
Squad's
Suicide
not
Squad
coming
first.
out for a while either.
But they did say that
No,
he
they're
was
starting to film it in August.
Yeah, they're
They
supposed
said
to
the
start.
photography starts in August.
Yeah, they're supposed to start really soon in production.
And when they made the announcement that he was coming back to Marvel, what they said was, but they were pacing it along his current schedule for Suicide Squad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So I think it's like 2022 or 2023. So it'll literally be the time of the snapping when we get like Guardians.
And if you
I
notice, the movies that are rumored to be announced could all take place in the past. Like the next upcoming movies. Besides
those
Spider-Man
Eternals.
Far From Home, Eternals could absolutely be in the past. Black Widow's
Oh,
going
they
to be
said
in the past. What'd
They
you say,
said
Rich?
that the Far From Home is actually happening within the snapping in timeline.
Oh, it is?
Yeah, because remember, he got dusted.
See,
Oh,
that
yeah,
one
yeah,
actually
yeah, yeah,
makes
yeah.
me feel a
That's why I
lot
said, yeah,
better
besides that one. That one takes place right
yeah,
after
they
the
said
snap.
it's like. Yeah, they said it's like 15 minutes after it happens. That's when they go to the.
After Endgame.
That's when that movie starts. Yeah.
Yeah. But
But
then,
how does that work if he was in New York fighting alongside Tony?
no. After Endgame. It takes place after Endgame.
No, yes, that's what I thought it was going to be, but I have a problem with how quick the world has adjusted itself.
No, they showed him going back to school at the end of Endgame. He shook hands with Ned, and they were like crying together.
Yeah, I know, but still, also the world is fucked. It's not in a good place at the time.
But it's New York. They got money, baby.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he
And
is
that might
in
be
New
one
York.
of the things. Like we're gonna do a semester abroad in the summer to kind of like have everyone kind of chill and smart science kids. You guys can figure it out.
And so
Blocked.
then we get the scene with Cap saying he's going back to put all the stones back in place. And then they try to pull him back out, and he's not back out. And then you see him over there sitting there. And it's this old man, and Sam goes over there, and he starts talking to him about how he went and lived life, which ties up so much stuff throughout the MCU movies. And then Sam says, it's going to be weird, not having a Captain America running around. And then Steve goes, why does it not need to be a Captain America? And he hands Sam the shield. And that moment got me too. Because
me and Brandon Burford, I know on different coasts, we both had a smile on our face when we saw
here's
that
the
shit,
funny
'cause-
thing, though. I don't like Anthony Mackie.
I know.
And
I
it's
don't
so-
like Anthony Mackie too. Like MCU Falcon, I could give a fuck about. He's just a dude with a winged backpack and no armor and 2 SMGs.
Yeah.
MCU Falcon is not worthy.
He's also the only person who's never gotten a comic accurate costume.
Well, yeah, that's true.
They
I think
changed it for the cartoon. They
bothered-
changed it.
I think if
Red?
they go with him being Captain America Sam Wilson, they got to give him that costume. Because that costume's dope.
Dope.
Yeah.
And they got to show him like trying to learn how to throw the shield. Because that was a big part of the comic book series is that
The balance. Yeah.
he couldn't throw the shield like Steve. And so he would always fuck up with the shield when he was trying to fight because he didn't have a lot of practice with it. Rich, what'd you think about that?
I loved it, and I loved it because back to what we were saying with the time travel stuff, it fits. And then also, it was clear to me that Bucky was in on it, as far as like
Oh, he
was
knew.
already in.
Yo,
Bucky
Bucky
knew.
knew.
Bucky knew.
2 seconds.
Bucky
yeah.
definitely knew.
He
like
knew
right
he wasn't
before
coming
Steve
back.
even left, he was already crying.
They
Mm.
And
were
then he's
saying
like, I see you.
goodbye.
Yeah, and then he was like, and then he did the thing like most parents would do, like if like we go to Disney, it's like I'll bump Trey's like, oh hey, who's that over there? Is that Mickey? Why don't you go knock on his back and see what's going on? And they finally got that moment. And then for me, I had a buddy of mine text me because I was like, my favorite part of it was going back to that whole idea of the physics of time travel. He did what he was finally meant to do, like Tony. He gets to rest, but that rest occurred while we thought, and this is dark, when Peggy was talking about her husband. We never saw the picture, never saw anything. She had Alzheimer's. So,
or she's
Oh,
a badass
shit.
shield agent who kept secrets no matter what. So she even knew that she kept it a secret from him. She could have also not had dementia.
So she knew.
Okay, I didn't go that deep. That is brilliant, and I am with it.
Wow.
So she, yes,
Wow.
I'm with it.
I didn't even think about
That's
that.
mind blowing. Yeah, that's mind blowing.
Wow. Okay. That's
Y'all see,
Now,
That's actually pretty interesting.
we
It's
can't
all
keep
the
adding
same
these movies
thing.
back in.
Everything that you've seen, it happened.
Yeah.
Nothing got thrown out of whack with the time. This is all what happened.
wow.
And so for me, I love it because my one buddy was always the contrary. He's like, oh, so Steve really had to sit through all this evil stuff going on, and like in 2012 there was 3 Steve Rogers. I'm like, yep, there were 3 Steve Rogers in 2012. There was the Steve Rogers hanging out with his wife because he earned it. There was the Steve Rogers in 2012 trying to save the world, and there was the Steve Rogers from 2023 trying to save the world.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see the problem.
So do you think Steve was being a normal person his whole life, or do you think he was Captain American in the 50s and 60s and 70s?
No, you can't have it because if
You
that
can't
happened,
have it because
still-
the world doesn't
Yeah.
know. But what I hope is that he was maybe like incognito shield agent doing work. Maybe he was in an administrative position. Like, I hope he was still doing, because if he goes back in time, and even though this was my theory, Brandon and we talked about that, and Mike, even though this was my theory, after seeing it, he going back in time to choose to live like that actually kind of makes him unworthy of Mjolnir to me. So I hope to make that correction, he has to do something for the good of humanity, but he has to understand he's got to be secret, because as far as everybody know, Steve Rogers went into the ice in 45. And so he can only do things for the good of humanity if he's doing them in secret through S.H.I.E.L.D.
See, I would disagree. I would say he has to do nothing, because if he does do anything,
It's gonna
he
be
doesn't
remarkable.
know. Right. Because if you think about it, by him not doing it, all of those events go into motion to leading to the just like with Doctor Strange, just like with the Ancient, just like with Frigga,
mess with time.
they all kept saying what has to be is meant to be. So he can't say, because to me the first thing, everyone always wants to be the idiot. It's like, oh, well, why didn't you save him? Okay, it's like no, don't.
He can't do any of that stuff.
Right, and he can't even stop. He can't even do the Uncle Ben. Like, you don't know what's gonna happen. Like, let's say he tries to do a little thing and he winds up saving Uncle Ben.
Right. He's got to be real careful. And so that basically makes Peggy even more of a fucking badass, because she would be, if he's not doing anything, if he's not secretly saving the world, then she has all the information. And
that's why I loved Agent Carter, and I wish it kept going. That show was
I wish it kept going
amazing.
too. It was so good. But
Well, blame Perlmutter. Like, that's the thing
that
about
was
this. Like,
Perlmutter,
all of this and like the Disney Plus and all of the wonderful things that are happening now with Feige, like having his own Infinity Gauntlet for television and entertainment. Like, it's because now everything fits. You don't have like I'm looking forward to seeing how Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. deal with the snap, because they said they're going to deal with it a little bit, and there's only so much they can do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, what I'm curious about coming back with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is because they do reference something happening on Earth that's significant with the Avengers, but they don't say what it is. I hope when they come back, I don't know what time, are they coming back 5 years into the future? Are they coming back immediately after that? There's a lot of things that they got to wrap up.
I think they said Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. picks up after Endgame. I think I remember reading
that would be way better for me. That would make me feel way better, because if they have to deal with the snap and then like be Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and then all of us, and then that way it gives you time for I'm assuming it's a Kree version of Coulson or something, or like a whatever they end up doing with him, clone Coulson. It would give you time for that to happen, and for him to be whatever he seems to be being. So
that's a perfect conversation for our second part of the Endgame review. Is going to be where does the MCU go from here. So that'll be another episode. But before we get out of here, because we've been here a long time, I'll let everybody give their final thoughts or anything that we didn't talk about you can bring up. So we'll start with Big Mike. What are your final thoughts about Endgame, or anything you wanted to say that we didn't get to?
Yeah, you guys are gonna have to let me go off a little bit right now.
Please do.
My biggest problem, which I've kind of learned to accept, was the time travel thing, and I meant to bring it up earlier, but we kind of got sidetracked a little bit. I personally, I really liked Ant-Man and the Wasp. I watched it, I think, the morning of Endgame, so it was very fresh in my mind.
I know where you're going with this.
I just feel like they really glossed over. It was kind of a cop-out thing, that the whole time travel thing. Like, in Ant-Man and the Wasp, the quantum realm, all that time travel, like, time and space work differently in the quantum realm. Seemed like they kind of threw all of that out the window when it came to Endgame. And Ant-Man and the Wasp, like, in order to find Hope's mom and go through the quantum realm, everything had to be very, very specifically done. Like, you only have this 15-minute window to find me, or else you have to wait another 100 years, and then it'll be impossible, or all that kind of stuff. Also, even just in that movie itself, the fact that Hope's mom aged at the same rate as everyone else in the real world, but in Endgame, when Lang was in the quantum realm, he aged 5 hours, and everyone else aged 5 years.
Someone explained that one to me, because I had that problem too.
Yeah, it just didn't make sense to me. So any insight would be great, because that kind of just stuck out and bothered me a little bit. But mostly just the fact that it just seems so ridiculously easy to travel to the exact location, the exact time that they wanted to, at any moment that they wanted, and I just find it a little too far.
The part with Hope, with Janet Van Dyne, I don't understand that either. I need somebody to explain that to me. But the part with them figuring it out, to me, that was just Tony Stark is smarter than Hank Pym. I just thought that's what that was.
And don't forget to add in the fact that, again, a very small line, but it's also something I think about with most science fiction. Two very small lines. When Star-Lord in Infinity War says, "If I'm half Terran, that means you're 100% idiot."
Yeah.
And when you think of the disdain on Rocket's face as he's building the time machine,
that's
and saying,
true.
"You think you're the smartest person? You're just the smartest person on Earth."
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
because they were working with Rocket.
If you want to disagree with like time travel and the stuff with the theories, then we got to throw out the fact that the space raccoon just built the time machine.
Yeah, and I think my biggest problem is more of just a me thing. I find it very difficult to just accept these these very fantastic kind of elements in these movies. I'm a very logical person, so it's really difficult for me to just kind of accept these, like, Tony Stark is the smartest man in the world, so he can just figure this shit out. Like, it's very. I would like a little bit more explanation.
Oh, I can't wait till you watch them actually do Reed Richards. That'll be great.
Oh my god.
Yeah. Well, that stuff has always kind of bothered me, but I guess for the sake of this movie and really enjoying this to its full extent, I really just need to kind of throw out that logical side in an illogical world for the most part. It is
We also don't know how long it took him, because they kind of didn't give us any timestamps.
It seemed like he just did it in
in the movie it makes it seem like he figured it out overnight, but I feel like it was probably at least some months.
It was probably a decent amount of time, I'm sure, but even just the fact that he was like, "Oh, I completely solved time travel. I can go anywhere at any time in any location that I want just by doing this one thing." So that was my.
But he also had his artificial intelligence do it, because that was the other thing. Like, it wasn't like him in a lab. He created an artificial intelligence that ran the same permutations that led to them creating Ultron and Vision.
Yeah, because Mike can explain this. The thing with the AIs is they don't go to sleep, so they can just be running. Infinite
I'm also
amounts
just gonna assume that Tony Stark has a quantum computer, and he can just, if he did, he probably could do it overnight. I'm not gonna lie. Actually, if 5 years from now, quantum computing is supposed to be real anyway, so if quantum computing does become real, there are like a bunch of math problems that humans could never solve in their lifetime, but a quantum computer could in like a couple hours.
And now to just quote Ant-Man and the Wasp, do you just throw quantum in front of every word?
Yeah,
Quantum
Big Mike come through.
You just throw
That was
quantum
good.
in front of everything and make it sound smart. But yeah, that was really my biggest personal problem, just because I do find it difficult to just accept those things pretty blindly. But other than that, I thought it was a fantastic movie. That ending 40-minute fight scene or whatever, how long it was just pure cinematic genius. I mean, every shot, every little plot twist, every little throwback was unbelievable, and it really was the perfect way to end such a historic franchise. And I mean, gotta shout out Stan Lee, gotta shout out Robert Downey Jr. for
this was
making
Stan Lee's
nerd
last
culture cool.
cameo.
Last
Yeah.
cameo.
Yeah.
I wanted Stan Lee to be Old Man Cap,
That would have been cool.
or
Oh,
at the
that would have
funeral.
been cool.
He should
Oh,
have been at the
I
funeral.
bet you they would have. Oh no, he was alive when they shot it.
He should have been at the funeral.
But shout out to them for making nerd culture cool. I mean, at this point in 2019, if you're not down with nerd culture and comic book movies and anything like that,
You
are
suck.
very much the outlier.
You know what would have
Like,
been cool if he was at the funeral as the Watcher, because the Watcher only shows up at like big cosmic events. And so if the Watcher would have showed up and been like, Tony Stark dying is like this big cosmic event, that would have been really cool.
Oh, that would have been nice.
Devin, what about you? What were your overall thoughts?
I have
Anything?
nothing to say other than I lost it when Happy told his daughter, "You can have all the cheeseburgers you want." And I wasn't ready. I weeped then. I was definitely ugly cried in the theater. So, when did everybody else like have their moment when they lost it? Like they couldn't keep it together anymore.
I mean, literally almost the whole movie.
Mine was Avengers, the whole them coming out and coming back. Like when Falcon's like, "Hey Cap, do you read me?" I was like, "Oh."
Ugh. And then the first people you get to see is T'Challa and Okoye and Shuri, and didn't I describe like something like that, like when we were talking before, Brandon?
Yeah.
And I was just like, this is my fantasy, and I know I'll never see it. And even though it's not quite exactly how I was picturing it, it was fucking beautiful. It was so amazing.
Mike, what are your final thoughts?
I agree with everyone so far. I would like to point out that the last time we talked about Endgame, I proposed a concept that was laughed out, and I was right. Everyone, when they were brought back, I'm pretty sure they were brought back to the exact place that they disappeared. So now there's a bunch of people who are flying on an airplane and riding on boats that are definitely just going to die now. All disregarded me. A bunch of people who were wiped from existence get to return, all happy that they're no longer wiped from existence. Oh shit! I'm 30,000 feet in the air. Now I've come back just to fall to my death and
No, Michael. Everybody else came.
Way to be
Michael
Captain
said-
Negative.
Right? I will say, of all of Mike's theories that did not happen, the one that I actually wished happened is that the one where you see Nick Fury start to say "mother" and then he's
That was Big Mike's.
That's big.
back. Oh, is that Big Mike's theory?
Yeah.
You know he did it. You know he finished.
And then he comes back. He comes back and says, "Fuck yeah!" If they would have just given us one fuck in the Marvel MCU or in the MCU,
Dude, they
that
had
would have
Cap
made me.
cussing all throughout the movie.
Yeah.
Nobody called him out on his language.
Oh my God. I was like, oh, he is angry.
Yeah, Cap was angry.
Maybe that's what finally made him worthy, because cussing actually is good for your brain.
It is. You read that book?
No, I just know it because I'm smart and I cuss like a motherfucker.
Sharmane, what are your final thoughts?
I mean, I think I've said a lot of the things that I feel. It's just like it was just a emotional experience. It was a comic book geeks, fantasy come to life. I think like there's so many aspects of this movie that was something I wanted to see. It had me behaving in a way in a theater that I don't typically behave, screaming and acting a fool. I mean, it's not that I haven't shouted out or anything like that before, but I literally just screamed bloody murder when Cap had Mjolnir, when he said Avengers Assemble. Just, I don't know. There's so many things. There's just so many things about this movie that was exactly like I didn't even know that this was how I wanted it, and then I got it this way, and that's exactly how I wanted it.
Perfect.
And
okay.
Iron Man got the proper warrior's death.
I know you were happy about that. Rich, anything? Your final thoughts? Or anything we didn't get to that you want to bring up?
Oh, see, I nerded out, so I thank y'all for your patience with that. I will say, and I didn't want to do it over the weekend because I didn't want to be spoilers, so I try to be as ignorant as possible on my timeline. Like good ignorant, not like being a fool ignorant. We got to put some respect on Wong's name because it's like all the jokes where he was eating a sandwich, he was just chilling, having a tuna melt and waiting for things to end. He came through. He's like, and the fact that Stephen Strange looked at me, he's like, "Is this it?" He's like, "I got like." On a whim more like I just pulled the entire universe together with like 7 people. Right. And I love this movie. I thought the stuff that branches out and things that can happen in the future, just my brain went to like little things like a trip to Wakanda can fix Vision, a trip to Wakanda can fix Sam. I'm not Sam, I'm sorry. Rhodey.
Yeah.
A trip to Wakanda could probably get some things done for Nebula before they peace out. Like, or even she could teach them some stuff.
Yeah, because she does have alien tech.
Yeah, let me protect my network a little bit better. I don't need nobody stealing my Wi-Fi.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Cassie aging up means we're definitely getting Young Avengers at some point.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. My one wish is I want Wonder Man. That is the one Avenger I think is the perfect human being.
Maybe they do Wonder Man to bring Vision back and actually do it like they did in the books.
I would love for Wonder Man to be Dwayne Johnson, but I'm a greedy man.
Can you imagine?
Superhero that's a movie star that's also a superhero.
I now have to look.
Can you imagine Wonder Man? Oh my God, that would be so interesting. Also, we don't know if Black Adam's actually going to happen, so he may be open to joining the MCU. Although they kind of let people do both now, apparently. So
it looks like they are.
I don't think that won't be that big of an issue. All right, cool. So thank you everyone for joining, coming on the show and do this. Sharmane, what do you got coming up this week on Militantly Mixed and BlerdCoMixed?
Militantly Mixed, I fucked up and my file got fully corrupted and I was still like, I was in full Avengers mode, so I basically just recorded me saying, I fucked up, there's no file this week. On BlerdCoMixed, we're gonna do our review of Avengers Endgame. We're gonna get back with Q and try to understand why he hates this movie so hard. And then, like I said, my hub is gonna come on and explain time travel to the world. That's what we're doing for that. Let's see. Black Radical Queer has a fan whose life was changed by finding Black Radical Queer come on the show and talk on that one. So that's gonna be good too. And yep, that's what we got for this week.
Cool. I'm going to be on the Deep Dive with Rich this weekend, talking about wrestling fans and a bunch of different stuff in regards to that. Rich, anything else you got going on in the PwTorch this week?
Before this, I recorded for about 2.5 hours with Bruce Mitchell, talking about some stuff that went down as far as the Crockett Cup. And we also compared WWE to Marvel in terms of providing entertainment or not providing it. And I then posited that Fox was really the best example, and we kind of went from there.
So definitely subscribe to the PwTorch if you're interested in wrestling at any levels. It's very good. Also, Rich does the after show of the East Coast Cast with Travis. And last week, like the last 2 weeks, their Game of Thrones recap has been so hilarious because Travis is so animated. That is so funny. Listening to him discuss things, and then he gets like into this real mode, So I'm interested to see how.
Yeah, I want to throw a brick at him sometime. So this Wednesday night, it's going to be us yelling at each other about Avengers Endgame and The Longest Night. So to help y'all understand, the Travis is the type of dude, like when we were talking about Endgame, not even Endgame, I'll talk about Game of Thrones. We were talking about Game of Thrones and something happened, and he'll be like, you know what? I really don't see it. Like, you're just projecting. I mentioned like Missandei, not Missandei. I mentioned like Grey Worm and Missandei, like when they were in the north, they were catching a lot of that economic anxiety. He's like, you're just projecting that. And then the very next week, he's like, y'all, you see these looks these kids are giving me? I was like, yeah. He's like, well, I didn't say that last week. I was like, mother, you kids. So yeah, that's our relationship. It's been 4.5 years, and I should be used. I'm like Nebula. I just take the abuse, and I hope one day that it'll make me better.
It's so good. So yeah, and they talk about on the after show. They talk about wrestling. They talk about comic books. They keep talking about the Orville, which makes me think I should actually watch it. But
it's good, Brandon. It's good.
So
it's Seth MacFarlane, man, and he gets to play with Star Trek-y themes, so it's good.
Maybe I will actually watch the Orville. So definitely check out the PwTorch and all their content. It's really, really good. We're doing our Game of Thrones recap on Wednesday. So Sharmane will be back from that. Devin will be back for that. Mike doesn't watch Game of Thrones because he's a loser.
You don't?
I know. Me and Big Mike were just talking about actually starting it, but by the time we finish, you're going to be well finished.
So yeah, so that'll be. I can't wait to talk about Arya coming through in the clutch. Air Arya.
Arya.
So I'm excited about that. But thank you guys for listening. Like I said, we're gonna have a part 2 Avengers Endgame recap sometime this week or early next week, discussing the future of the MCU. But until then, just subscribe to all the shows on Main Hustle Media. Sign up for the PwTorch. Subscribe to our show, the Why So Serious Podcast. And thank you guys for listening. And talk to you later.